Jim Wrigley.
How are you?
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a sales expert.
Somewhat, I guess that's a weird word, but I'll take it.
You know, you can't be broke and a sales expert because people think you're not a sales expert.
That's a very good point.
That's that one thing where it's like you can easily find out if somebody's a sales expert or not. You know, we know each other and we got along from day one because you were a sales expert because you actually understood sales.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that sell a lot of things but aren't actually good at sales.
Right. I would say that's fair, yeah. Yep.
Something that I really liked about you is that you understood that sales is a byproduct of a bunch of other things,
mm-hmm.
and you've spent a lot of time focusing on those other things.
Those details are super important, yes.
So for me, I find what helps me the most in closing deals is follow-up.
Right.
And so every time I send an email, I have a special email service I use where I click the letter H and it says remind me, and I click when I want it to come up to my inbox again so I can follow up.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
And so I feel where I get the most compliments and the most deals is people say, well, you didn't stop following up for 6 months, 3 months, 10 months, whatever the case is.
I think that'll pay off handsomely over time. Yeah.
So that's me. I think, hey, this is what has helped me the most in my sales career. What has helped you the most?
Well, I like to break it down into the tiniest details because I think all these little things matter. And a lot of times people, they want to sell something. So they're, hi, nice to meet you. Here's what I've got. Do you want to buy it? I think there's a lot of things that happens in between that. I think there's relationships that get built along the way. And one of the things that I noticed actually when we met, which was interesting, you brought something for me and I brought something for you. So I had a book and I brought you a copy of the book, and that is something that I do every time I talk to somebody, something that they can take away, something that makes the kind of the interaction more memorable. And sure enough, I laughed, and this is probably why we're sitting here, because I'm like instant friends, because you had something for me as I was handing something for you, which was the product that you were promoting. So I think there's a lot of details that goes into selling. There is a process that actually happens. It happens every single time. It doesn't matter that you don't know that it happens. It happens. I actually have written about it. It's called a persuasion cycle. And there's 7 steps that you go through when you're selling something. And each of these baby steps is really important. And you can actually codify those baby steps and put them down in a CRM, for example. So you use follow-up, you use technology for follow-up. We can use Salesforce and take each one of those steps and know that those steps happen. And it takes a little while to explain that. I can't do that all in one thing, but actually there are 7 steps that actually happen. We talked about it, you and I yesterday.
Let's go the high level of each 7.
So the high level of each 7, before anything happens, someone is resisting. That is the very first thing that happens when you meet somebody. If you're going to try to sell them something, they're immediately resisting. I said to you the other day, if you were selling a car, do you want to buy this car? Well, I'm resisting. No, I have a car. I don't need a car. So the first thing we have to do is get someone to start to listen. And there is a way to do that. And if they're not listening, then they're not buying anything, right? They're not considering it, which is the second step. So it goes from resisting to listening, from listening to considering, from considering to willing to do. Okay. So a lot of times in sales, we'll find people, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I might want to buy that car. And then from willing to do to doing it, right? And I know this sounds very tedious, but that's a whole process.
Well, the willing to do to doing it is the most frustrating thing ever, because often I think when somebody is at willing to do, that means they're ready to do.
Yes.
And so I'm like, are you just a liar? Are you just a loser? Are you just like to waste people's time? Like, I just really struggle with this,
absolutely,
that stage.
Because one of the things that I've talked to you about, because as you, like a lot of salespeople, are in a hurry. And the reason why you're in a hurry, because you're on your time frame, you're not on their time frame. And when you can get on their time frame, and when you can actually put this into a CRM, some kind of system that you know what step you're on, then you're being real. Then you have a predictable pipeline. So if they're willing to do it, you just said, you think, well, if they're willing to do it, then let's do it, right? But willing to do to doing is the step that actually a lot of people get stuck on. By the way, there's other steps. After they're willing to do to doing it, there's also the step called glad that they did. Right? Because if you're creating a customer relationship, a long-term relationship, okay, so they bought it. Are they using it? Right? We have some nice video equipment here in this room, but are we using it? Yes, today we're using it. But I can imagine there are some people that have studios and set up to do a podcast and then, willing to do it, and they're doing it and they bought it, but now are they doing it? Once they're doing it, are they enjoying it? Are they using it, right? Are they glad that they did? That's another step, believe it or not, that we can put into the CRM system. And then the final step is super, super powerful if you want to be good at sales. That's going from glad that they're doing it to telling everybody else that they're doing it, right? So this is something that I'm doing first time, enjoying it. But I will probably send you hey, you got to put on your podcast, right? Because I'm glad that I'm doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the referral stage.
The referral stage, yeah. So it's a whole process, though. So we're talking about the referral stage, and we have a long time to chat here. But when I say there's a persuasion cycle, there are definitely little steps that go into it.
It's so funny. I've built one tool, and it's for the very end.
There you go. Absolutely.
Like, that's how fast I move. I'm like, I don't know, whatever. It was just...
That's probably fair. Lots of people do that, and they get frustrated, and you've gotten frustrated. We talked about it. It's like, boy, everything went great, and then it didn't go. Well, that's because we didn't stop and look at what are each of the steps along the way that we need to look at. And that's why one of my taglines is I teach people how to make more money. And then I pause and I just kind of let that sink in. I teach people how to make more money. I do that for a reason, a very important reason. Because when I say that and I pause and allow somebody to catch up, when I say that and pause and allow somebody to catch up, what I'm allowing them to do is say, I'm not resisting anymore. I'm listening. I need more money. I'd like to make more money. I have a business. I'm a salesperson. And so what they've done, metaphor that I use, is they've bitten the hook. Until the fish has bitten the hook, if you're a fisherman, you can't start reeling. You can't bring them in. You can't bring them any further. And so that's why this process, and that's what I believe in sales. It happens, by the way. Sometimes the fish will come in and bite the hook, or they'll know that they want to buy a new car, and so they drive into dealerships. So, But guess what? All that marketing, all that pre-stuff, that was all getting them to stop resisting the new Toyota and go into the Toyotathon, right? Because now they're listening, now they're considering, now they're drive the car, right? So they're doing something. You get where I'm going with this.
I have found my entire... my life consists of this. I had little businesses that, I sold to my neighbors, and so that was easy.
Right.
Then I had a business that I sold to random people on the internet, and it kind of went viral, so that was easy.
Right.
Then I started an agency selling custom design, websites, visual branding, and I was like, oh, this is very hard. Like, I went from essentially B2C all the way to B2B.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is very tough, because my parents know nobody. So there was no relationships, even in our own family, but especially outside of our family.
Right. Okay.
And so the idea that everything comes from relationships is kind of what I'm on now, but I didn't realize that then. I didn't really realize that for a long time. So I was always trying to solve the problem of generating leads.
Right.
And that's all. I've spent my entire life trying to solve that problem.
Right.
And ultimately, cold calling and conferences and all these little things that move the needle
Mm-hmm.
are 1% of what getting to know new people does.
Right. Yeah.
Just growing your network.
Gotcha.
Because the idea is that people don't do business with the business that's best for them or the business that can help them the most. They do business with the person they like the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so on a pure generating cold leads method, do you have anything?
I do. I absolutely do. And in fact, it's kind of funny. We're here just talking, 'cause I'm used to talking to large audiences, right? Maybe not large audiences, but certainly audiences. So I have a line I use all the time.
At least starting at least 3 people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. But here's a line that I started to say. So grab a pencil, because I say this all the time, and write this down. And I would say to your audience, out there, to grab a pencil and write this down. Everybody is a prospect and a referral source. Everybody. And so if you look at everybody as a prospect or a referral source, what that means is every time you talk about what you do, you are actually presenting your stuff. I have gotten business in an Uber. I have gotten business on an airplane. I've gotten business from the Uber driver, right? I've had the Uber driver buy my book, and I had a copy of the book. Now, I didn't make the Uber driver buy the book, but the point is that because everybody's a prospect or a referral source, if you can get them from resisting to listening quickly, you can catch people's attention. So when I say I teach people how to make more money and I pause and I'm on an airplane and the guy happened to be the CEO of a company, he then comes in with the words that I'm absolutely looking for, which is, how do you do that? He's invited me to tell my story. Now, he's invited me to tell my story because he was I didn't know he was the CEO of a company. I didn't know he had a revenue problem, but he might have had a friend. Here comes the referral source. Wow, Jim, that's really interesting. I was talking to my buddy who is the CEO of a company who has I'd love for you to, boy, you ought to talk to him. Who's that? Right? Yeah. So you can see how no matter what happens, and you can do this in your business as well, once you hear the line, everybody's a prospect or referral source, then you just have to be ready to present, not to sell, right? Not to, hey, let's get somebody to buy it. No, just get somebody from resisting to listening. Get them to know what you're about.
Rabbit was supposed to go live at Georgia Tech, and COVID obviously wrecked that. I hope it still happens, all these things. But how the deal happened,
right,
was I was on a flight from Tucson to Nashville at 8 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday.
All right, yeah.
And it gets delayed, and so we're all like off the plane, and this lady had a cute dog, and I was like, can I pet your dog? And I don't really like small dogs, but she was like 40, so I wasn't flirting with her. I just like, I guess, I don't know, I needed a dog, I don't know, but it was a cute dog,
right?
And she had kids, and I love kids, and so anyway, I'm like petting the dog and talking to her, get back on the plane, and it's like delayed again. We're just sitting there. And so I just start like talking to the person next to me, making a joke. And eventually she's in the conversation, and I don't know how it leads into it, but it's like, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I'm actually working on something called Rabbit, and we're not live yet, but we're going to change everything. We solve the problem with people's phones dying. And I just pull out, it's like, this is just a prototype. You can have it. And it's like a prototype.
Sure, yeah,
so it was white. It was like, it was nothing like it is now.
That's nothing like what you gave me. Yeah, right.
I mean, it was the same concept,
Gotcha.
but it was just different because it was a prototype.
Yep.
And I was like, I just actually got back from China with this. And she's like, wow, like I actually was one of the first employees at Yahoo. And so I've worked in like early stage companies. Like I definitely get this everywhere.
Right.
And her ex-husband like led the tech incubator for Georgia Tech.
Oh boy. Okay.
So she knew all these people at Georgia Tech. So she just made one email intro, and then we walked right in.
Right.
And so that was just a random person on the airplane.
But you want to know what? I will tell you that those random stories, they're out there all day, every day. They're going to be out there for me on my way home on the airplane, because I'm going to introduce, I have a line. I use this on an airplane. I'm about to do the write this down again, right? But what I do is I say, are you coming or are you going? And I introduce myself when I shake a hand. Now we're in this COVID environment, so maybe we don't want to shake the hand. But the point is that you never know where you're going to get business from. And I have a cool story. Joe Montana is someone you're probably familiar with, but using the phrase, everybody is a prospect and a referral source, which is in my head all the time. I introduced myself. We chatted for a bit. What do you do? I teach people how to make more money, right? So that takes them from resisting to listening. And I ended up getting the speaking role. Joe Montana canceled. Nothing happened from that meeting, by the way. Nothing. Like literally nothing. We exchanged business cards. Nice to meet you, Jim. You're an interesting guy. Boy, I'm going to go look up the book. That sounds wonderful. And then I get a call. And he said, hey, one of the things that you mentioned, that you're kind of, a fun person. You kind of move quickly. I've got a problem. Can you help me? Sure. What's the problem? Joe Montana was my public speaker at a keynote, and he can't make it. Can you come to Seattle? So I stood in. Now, I'm no Joe Montana, but the presentation went pretty good. But that just shows you how you just don't know. So your question was, where do we get prospects from? I think we get prospects from wherever we go.
So do you think shopping is a great way to do that?
Shopping, like in a supermarket?
No, like...
Or a retail store?
Like, I'm trying to think of... I bought... we have a cloud couch, which is like a $20,000 couch from Restoration Hardware.
Okay.
I did not buy it new.
Okay.
But the person I bought it from has kids, so I picked it up from her $2 million home.
Nice. Good way to get a $20,000 couch.
Yeah. And I got again, heavily discounted, because like an all-white couch when you have 3 children at the age of 7 is not a good idea.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And
which they found out quickly.
Yeah. And so, we pulled up to this mansion, and, it turns out her husband owns like several franchises, and she's into this. And it's just like, I just see like endless opportunity to connect with these people, provide a bunch of value, and eventually they're my clients, so they can refer clients, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure.
And that's all from buying something.
Yes.
And I often, I almost buy nothing new. And so I feel like I found myself in this situation a ton.
Right.
And, you don't want to, again, you don't want to just always be buying things. That's probably not a good habit.
And then you don't want to, that's an expensive way to find prospects.
And then you don't want to just go look at things, because that wastes people's time. Wastes people's time. But I've often thought, like, man, what is a certain item that like rich people have that they might be selling that might be a good way for you to connect? I
don't know. I know this. I absolutely know this. You've got to be prepared. if you're going to have these experiences where you're going to run into people or you're going to be buying a couch from a local millionaire, right? Whatever it is, you have to be ready to sell. You have to be ready to present, but it's not presenting. With everyone being a prospect or a referral source, you just have to have your first piece, which is that resisting to listening. So you said you were going to change the world with Rabbit, right? With your tool. Just have a little kind of a blurb, have something ready to go. Because if you have that,
you're saying have the elevator pitch?
It's not actually less than an elevator pitch. One sentence is often, and I help clients with this, come up with what the one sentence is. There's a company called Hydrofacial. Now, I did not come up with this line, but the concept, the CEO and I are friends, and the concept absolutely hits. A Hydrofacial, 3 steps, 30 minutes, best skin of your life.
Yeah.
Full stop. And people are like, okay, that's easy, that's inexpensive, right? You get the idea.
See, there's something super interesting. I do this for a living with websites. Like when we go to a website, we work very hard with clients on that opening tagline that grabs people.
Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, what is the opening tagline that grabs people?
It's different for every business. And right. We work with...
That's right. What is it on the
hundreds
website?
And hundreds of clients.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I got you.
And so that's what we spend a lot of time and effort and help clients with that. And I've actually never transitioned that and saying, taking that same line that's on the website, and then when people ask you what you do, just give them that answer from that line.
Yeah, right.
Now, do you like to be vague so that they'll be more curious?
Absolutely. I want to create, actually, I'll tell you what I want to do with my opening statement. I want my opening statement to make the other person say, how do you do that? That's literally how I test the line, right? So I teach people how to make more money, pause. That just naturally invites people to go, okay, I'm interested in that. How do you do that? And when they say, how do you do that? Right? That's when they have kind of bitten. That's when they're intrigued. That's when they're interested. They've invited you to speak. You're going from resisting to listening. And that's what sales is really about. And you've got to get past that step one. So whatever the product is, it isn't. So if you make a wrench, right? Or if you're a plumber, what do? I'm a plumber. Doesn't really leave anything but actually, so what I would say, I'll just do plumber because I use plumber as an example all the time. What do? I'm in a person's house at the most important time in their life. Right? That's what I would say if I was a plumber. And that plumber would get a lot more business if they were to say that instead of I'm a plumber. If they're at a cocktail party, right? They should be expanding their network. They should be prospecting all the time. And so when someone says to a plumber, what do? I'm in a person's house at the most important time in their life. What is that? Well, you got a leak in your toilet's jammed, whatever it is. You need a plumber, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So the tagline for 19 is all brands leave legacies. We hope your brand leave a great one. Like that's what it says when you go to the website. So it's just saying like, hey, every brand's going to leave a legacy.
Right.
Good or bad.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
If you work with us,
yeah,
it will become a great one.
Yeah, that's right.
And I would love to work with, all right, how do I take that? Because people ask me what I do. I always like, I run a custom design development agency. We build websites. I actually kind of
boring,
downplay
right? Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the reason I downplay it is because I'm just tired of, as much interviews and things as I do. So I'm just tired of telling people what I do.
Right. Yeah.
And
right.
Rabbit is Rabbit is I just say, we solve the problem with people's phones dying.
Right. Okay.
that really is right.
And that really is what it is, right? And so yes, but the test, and I will just help you with your business, help other people with other businesses. The test is it really comes back to, well, how do you do that? That is the big thing. So I like the one for Rabbit. I didn't really like the other one as much. And if you're tired of telling the story, you don't have to tell the story. You just tell what the value of what you do is. It's the value of what you do, that they want to hear that will intrigue them back.
During ping pong, we'll work on this.
Yeah, we'll work this out on the ping. So far, I've been a big loser on the ping pong table.
But you've gotten gradually better.
Yeah, I'm gonna win before I go.
Well, you're not. But whether or not gotten a lot better.
Whether or not you let me win before I go, yes, I will win before I go.
So, most sales experts I've met started out as just a sales rep at a company, became the number one sales rep at the company.
Okay.
And then thought, I can make more money teaching this to people.
Okay.
What was your journey?
So my journey that's an excellent question, and thank you for that question. My journey was that. There's the old natural salesman, and I don't believe that at all. So, and you used a line that I disagree with big time. Just a salesperson. Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no. My father was just a salesperson. I think salespeople are the most important people to this entire economy, right? Nothing happens till somebody sells something.
Well, there's no revenue, therefore there's no economy without sales.
Yes, nothing happens till somebody sells something. So when I hear the term just a salesperson, I definitely take umbrage to that, right? So I did start off as a salesperson, and very quickly, interestingly enough, I was a coach. And what I mean by that, I was looking at other sales reps going, why are they doing this wrong? This isn't as difficult as it needs to be. Right. And so I just progressed from there to a manager. I literally became a manager because I was coaching my fellow I was going on sales calls with other people in other territories. Why is that? Just because it's not that hard of a thing if you just have a process to follow. And all of a sudden they're buying me beers and they're, hey, Jim, can you come with me? And of course, companies realized that, recognized that, became a manager, became a coach. And that's kind of the journey that my career went on.
So what was that first company? What were you selling?
That first company was Dun & Bradstreet. And it was a big corporation. You're probably familiar with Dun.
Yeah, the Dun EIN number.
The Dun number, the Dun's number. Yeah, there you go. It was Business Credit Services. It was right here in Dallas, Texas.
So check this out. To submit an app to the App Store, you have to have a DUNS number.
You absolutely have to have a DUNS number. Yes, you do.
I was like, what do you mean? I have an EIN. That's like I had never heard of one before.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a crazy...
It's a unique 9-digit numbering system for businesses, much like Social Security numbers. DUNS number is very important. If a business doesn't have a DUNS number, no offense to your business, go get your DUNS number. If a business doesn't have a DUNS number, it's not really yet a business.
Now... Does a DUNS number? I'm sorry, we'll get back, but I have a bunch of questions about DUNS numbers.
I'm going to have to go way back in my career and sell you on why you need to be involved with Donna Bradstreet.
Yeah, so a DUNS number, I mean, if you learn to sell that, then you can sell anything, I bet. Because, I mean, I just remember going to their website and being like, wait, this is just some BS thing? This isn't required by the government or anything? It's just some, like, BS thing that Apple's requiring me to have to submit an app? What does it do?
So it's not a BS thing, first of all. So just like Social Security numbers are not a BS thing, there's a lot of things that go into the Social Security number. The first digits of mine, I won't tell you because someone will reverse engineer it. But the first digits are the town that you were born in. Same way with the DUNS number. The DUNS number is a unique numbering system. It's a patented, algorithmic, secret thing so that there's only ever one DUNS number. There's a whole process. We don't waste a lot of time on how it works, but that's what it is. And that company's been around for a long time. And so, I mean, a long time. Like Abraham Lincoln actually worked for presidents, actual presidents. I know that you have an interest in being president of the United States. 4 U.S. presidents, their first job was Dun & Bradstreet. 4. Abraham, and it's called reporters. They go out and report on businesses, and they come up with the information on the businesses, and that's what that is. So that's why. That's what that number is about.
Yes, I don't know how they make money. I don't understand. You're saying it's important. I don't know why it's important, though.
So how they make money is it's a business credit reporting system. So they keep information on businesses that can be used for loans and credit checks and getting credit from one vendor to another. And so they have to, the first thing on that report, which goes way, way back in time, is the number. We know it's a unique numbering system, so we know it's the actual company. That's what the DUNS number is about.
So if your company needs a line of credit, then they would have a DUNS number.
They're probably going to pull, and it's just called a D&B, right? But a D&B, Dun & Bradstreet, they're probably going to pull a business credit report on the business, and that's what Dun & Bradstreet does.
Okay, so it's...
At least the division, by the way, Dun & Bradstreet does a lot of stuff, but the division that I worked for, that's what we did, yeah.
So what did you do all day?
So what we did all day was we called, in fact, right here in Dallas, which was interesting, we called on businesses, and we talked about the fact that we have these credit reports available. And there was a process with that as well, because you had to, first of all, let them know that, what are your current practices, and then change your current practices, because at that time, this is going to sound so weird, but at that time you could actually get it through a computer, through a modem, there was the phone dial-up thing, and it was really quite fascinating what we sold. It was, you could get your information.
So can I be a prospect and we kind of role play this for a second?
Oh my God, probably not, but let's go for it.
All right, you call me. This is Nathan's Plumbing.
Oh, you've answered the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we would do is now I don't remember it off the top of my head because it's been a while, but I would have my opening statement, my resisting to listening statement, and I would say that my name and the reason for my call. That's really, really important if we want to talk about cold calling. The very first thing you should say when you're cold calling someone is the reason for my call is, right? And usually that's going to be my name and my company, and I'd like to introduce myself. Pause, right? Because that's a reasonable ask. And one of the lines that I really like is, I don't have any idea if this fits for you, but can I just take 30 seconds to explain what I do? Kind of a reasonable ask, right? And so what happens is now we insert like, for example, if I was trying to sell somebody to come, be a presenter or sell my book, I would do that. My name is Jim Wrigley. I wrote a book. I'd like to introduce myself and my company. I don't know if this fits at all, but can I take 30 seconds to tell you what I do? Sure. Now watch what happens next. I teach people how to make more money. Pause. How do you do that? Right? And then when they say, how do you do that? What did they just do on this cold call? They invited me to talk. I called you at random, but they invited me to talk. If they don't invite you to talk, this is a second step to it. And that is I teach people how to make more money. Pause. If it's awkward, then it'll be awkward quickly if they don't say something. So what does that mean? I ask the question that I want them to ask. So what does that mean? Well, that means I have a process and a procedure, and I think sales is actually a relatively straightforward process. And I wanted to kind of just walk you through that process. Now they're interested, right? And so when they're interested, what we've done on a cold call, that is the job. Your question was about a cold call or a role play on a cold call. What we've done is we've taken them from resisting, who's this random person calling me, to listening. If they're listening enough, we can get them to considering. And one of the things that we can do on that is we can ask them then for an appointment. Look, I know I've caught you at a bad time. What really the reason for my call was to set up a better time. When is a better time? Then you offer some suggestions of when there's a better time. Is better time tomorrow or the better time the next day? And you're asking them to choose. That's the choice close. I mean, sales is a detailed thing, right? But that's how it works.
But what I want to get into this Dunn's call. Like okay. You call them. You call me, Nathan's Plumbing. How can I help you? Mm-hmm. What is I know you don't know your exact line, but around about what are you trying to convey to them? Like, what is your hook thing?
I have one goal, and that is I have a product and a service. In the case of Dun & Bradstreet, or in the case of anything, I have one goal, and that is to get some time with them. Because the next thing, because I'm not selling them, that's the big thing. What I have to do is a thing called discovery. When you go on a sales call, when you're doing something new, as with Dun & Bradstreet, I don't know if they need anything from me. So I have to discover what their current situation is. So
you would probably say something like, are you looking for a line of credit in the future?
No. I
don't know.
I would know.
So tell me.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you what we're doing. When we get on the phone, what we want to do is we want to get some time with people because we want to understand what they do. We tell them the value we provide. Okay? Which is we help people get business. We help your credit department get a better line of credit, right? Or approved lines of credit. So usually companies that are like, if you were to do your rabbit thing and you're going to, before you install the rabbits in each of your locations, you would want them to know that they're a legitimate business credit. How are they going to do that? How are you going to do that as rabbit? You're going to run a Dun & Bradstreet on them, right? But first I have to know what you're selling. First I have to know what your current procedures are, right? And in fact, I'll tell you a kind of a cool story. This is a really neat way to do it. How to have a conversation. There are really 4 things to have a conversation. What are you doing now? What do you like about what you're doing now? What do you dislike about what you're doing now? And what would you change? And when you take those 4 things and just remember that in your head, now, like, dislike, change. I've done that 1,000 times in my life. Now, like, dislike, change. What happens is I have a conversation. I'm going 360 degrees around someone's situation. If I'm selling Dun & Bradstreet as the example that we're using here, I can get them to tell me what they're doing now, what they like, what works, what doesn't work, because I need to find something that's broken. And if time and money were not an issue, this is how I ask the question. If time and money were not an issue, what would you change? And then I kind of throw in for humor, and you can't say, give me $1 million. They laugh, and then I say, seriously, what would you change? Well, we need a better procedure. In the case of me, back in the day selling this, I was their top salesperson. What I found out was we had an electronic procedure. You could actually get something faxed. By the way, we're going way back in time on the technology, but quick, speed. We were selling a tool that created speed, but I had to get them to say slow before I could sell speed.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I still just don't really understand
what Dun & Bradstreet does. Yeah, and that's fair.
So I don't get, like, when you're calling them, what is their problem that you're trying to solve? And so my guessing is their problem is they need more lines of credit. And they're going to need your number to get those lines of credit?
Well, it's not just a number. So the Dunn's number that you've heard
of. They need your report that you have.
That's exactly right. There's a whole history on your company. There's sales, there's revenue, there's comparative to other companies in the business. There's a payment history called a Paychecks report. Again, I'm going way back on the product. We're getting too far into the product and not because
y'all have been tracking. Even with before they've registered.
Oh, hell yes. Yes.
So then when they register, it says, we'll give you access to all this. You give it to your bank and say, look, we pay our bills on time.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's really helpful information, obviously, because you don't want to set up a line of credit at Rabbit for Joe's Bar if they have a history of non-payment or a history of slow payment. Does that make sense?
Well, they get the unit for free, and then we pay them.
Well, I understand. This is a tricky, and you're also taking me, I don't remember right off the top of my head some of the elements of that.
You're there, you're crushing it, you're number one, next steps.
So next steps was next steps in my career.
Yeah.
So I thought it was silly, right? And what I mean by that is like, this isn't that hard. Why is this that hard? I actually invented a thing called usage focus days. And one of the things that I don't know if famous is the word, but I got invited by the CEO as a very young person to go up and talk about, why is it that your team, there was a recession back then. There was the S&L crisis. Some of these things are, way back in time.
What was the S&L crisis?
S&L crisis was the banks, savings and loans were making commercial loans. There were banks called Savings and Loan. They were more for personal stuff, but they started making commercial loans, and they were terrible at it. And back in the 80s-ish.
Do we bail out the banks again?
Oh, yeah. No, the banks, yeah, we did. Before you were born, we absolutely. Look that up. It was quite a story. So basically, banks that were savings and loan, that made personal loans, got into commercial loans, and they were terrible at it, and they all went out of business.
Well, it doesn't matter, because at least the government will save them.
And the government saved them, and it was a big ordeal. But one of the places where it was really bad was Dallas, Texas, and I was still the number one salesperson, even though the economy was in the tank, and they were like, Jim, what are you doing? And so I had a thing, I called it Usage Focus Days. I was focused on, wait for it, getting the customer to use the services, because if they would use the services, then they'd have to buy more services. So I have a phrase that really works, and that is, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care about them, right? And that's not my phrase. I didn't invent it. I did write it in the book. I don't know where I heard it. I apologize to the original offer, but I live my life that way. So by focusing on how they use the product, by making sure, which I think is step 5 in the persuasion cycle, by making sure that they were glad they were doing what they were doing, they were using more and more of it. And when they used more and more of it, what did they need? They needed to buy more. And so I became the manager in Dallas. I was one of the youngest vice presidents in Donna Bradstreet history, and was really young here, living right in this town. And what I was able to do was to put that to my team. I could teach that to my team. We were doing usage focus days. What did usage focus days mean? We didn't sell anything. We would take a whole day with a whole office. There was 20 of us. We would hit the phones, caring about them. Hey, I have nothing to sell today. Just wanted to check in with you. We had a couple new ideas. Let me show you how to use it. And all of a sudden our usage would rise. And when our usage rose, then they needed to buy more. And we had people that won President's Club. You're probably familiar with the term. Like the top producers would go away to Hawaii. We had the largest representation at President's Club from my team, simply because we were focused on the customer. We were focused on making sure they used it. They were glad that they did, right? And when they were glad that they did, then they bought more. And that's how I became a top salesperson. And at that time, I didn't know what I was doing, meaning I didn't realize I was using actual step. All I did over time was like, why can I do it and other people can't? I started to codify that.
So as you were rising, was it really cool to watch your income also rise? I have a friend, Alex, and when we met, he was probably making like $100,000 a year, and now he's probably like, I don't know, 600 plus a year. And this has been in 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, right, sure.
And it's been really exciting for me as an outsider just to watch him just grow as a human, and then his income matched that. And you, as being the top producer, I'm sure you often saw.
Oh, yeah, massive increases. I'll tell you what I'm most proud of, though, interestingly enough, and this is probably why I'm sitting here today. I had dinner with someone last night that I hadn't seen in 20 years. And he said to me, Jim, is there anything I can do for you? And I don't want to say that he teared up, but he was very emotional when he said this. He said, because back in the day, and it's a long time, he was a salesperson that we worked with. We worked together. I was his boss. And he said, because back in the day, you have no idea what you did for me. So now, here we are, years later, we both have gray hair. I really do sincerely want to know what I can do for you, because you changed my life. And guess what I did for him? Nothing, in my view. I showed him a little process of how to make more money, and that's what he was referring to. He had a young family. He used the techniques. He built his business. He made more money than he ever dreamed, and his life changed, and his direction changed. And now he's 60 years old, and he's not working. He's retired. Why? He was a really good salesperson. So answering your question, do sales techniques matter? Oh, heck yes. And he is not the only one. I've had people, I came off a stage one time. There was a person who was an alcoholic, and she gave me a big hug, and she just heard my presentation, and she said, I've been an alcoholic, and I've got this new job, and I've only been here a month. She points her finger right in my chest. She goes, I will not let you down. I can do this. And what she could do was the simple techniques, which I just laid out over the last couple, 3-4 hours. And that's why she was so excited and so emotional, because she could see, because money is a weird thing. Money does change people's lives if you can acquire it. And I'll tell you this about salespeople, which I think is really cool. A lot of us, know what I'm doing here. A lot of us didn't start out with very much. And you're looking at a person who just did not start out with very much. But guess what? My father didn't go to college, but guess what he did? You already know what he did. He was a salesperson, selling door-to-door yellow page advertising. That's how he raised his family. And so I've kind of have that in my heart, my whole, sales is a way out when you don't have other opportunities. And it's not a way out like, okay, make a couple of bucks. Get good at sales.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of bucks.
Yeah, you always have like if you're good at sales, you always have a job.
You always have a job. You are a money printing press. And this is something that I just think is super cool. There are ways to money, and I'll tell you what they are. You can be a doctor or a lawyer or an entertainer or an athlete, right? Or a college professor. All these things that I'm naming are extraordinary individuals. Okay? There's another way out. You can be a business owner, entrepreneur, start a business, become a CEO. Also, different skill set. You need some startup money in those cases. Well, you need startup money in the other cases because you need massive education. But the only other person that can fit, that can go to that country club, and you're looking at them, right? Because my friends are that's what they are. My golf group, they're all lawyers. Everybody in my group, yeah, right, is quote unquote above me with education and skill set and this and that. But I'm right in there at this age and station in life because I'm a salesperson. Just as you said earlier, just a salesperson. But when you're just a salesperson, man, you can really make a life change if you didn't get A's in school.
Me as an entrepreneur that employs salespeople, and obviously because I started with nothing and no money and anything, and I still am the sales guy at not at Rabbit, but at the agency, I'm still the sales guy.
Yep, right.
What is a killer commission salary structure that attracts the top sales guys?
Well, that's a hard one because that just depends on what the industry is. If you really want to make killer, if you want to go big, actually, if you want to go big, be good in whatever it is. But there's some that make a lot of money in bigger ticket items. Software sales is one. Financial technology called fintech is what I've been involved in. That's where I've made the primary chunks of my money. I worked in the mortgage industry, selling technology to the mortgage industry. But mortgage originators are also some careers that are just huge money. I mean, ridiculous. Real estate agents, believe it or not, also salesperson. And here's what's interesting. So we think real estate agent, at least I do. Local housewife, just, go get the real estate license because we can get there. No, the real real estate agent isn't the local. Yeah. Real estate agents make ridiculous amounts of money. They have teams of people working for them. It's a real business. They can really do well. So yeah, if you're looking to get into sales, you don't need to go sell airplanes or yachts or whatever. Dun & Bradstreet, by the way, was a very good career. And in terms of what the money is, here's what I would tell people too. They're not doing it as much anymore, and I think that's a shame. But my very first job at Dun & Bradstreet, our salaries were $14,400. Now, that was a 6-figure job. You could make a lot of money at Dun & Bradstreet, but they weren't giving it away. It was called mostly commission. And I would tell any young person, and they won't do it, by the way. This is coaching that I've had a lot of coaching that people accept, but I would tell young people, go find the job that's 100% commission. Or go find the job that's just enough to get your rent paid and some food on the table, like $14,400 was when I was 25, because that was not nearly enough. But that's what Dun & Bradstreet was paying. Now go do the rest of it, and now go become the top producer, and you'll make a lot more money.
Yeah, but I'm saying, for me as a hind perspective, what should and just company owners in general, what should be the offers we put out there to attract the best salespeople?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I follow that question. Yeah. So what the compensation packages that are happening right now are typically, I'm finding they're about right around 100, 150 is a place where you'll find a good person. You'll want someone with a track record of success.
And that's salary. That's not commission.
And that's salary, not commission. And then you give them upside of that yet again. So if you've got 100 base, then they should have an opportunity to make 100 uncapped on top of it. So that works out to be, so that top producer would be doing 225.
Okay.
That's what you should be looking at.
And for people like me who don't have 200 grand
That kind of
into a
Yeah,
sales
well,
guy.
absolutely, yes.
What's the type of person I'm looking for? And more than anything, what's the starting, like, do you have, like, let's say I hire a bunch of sales guys that are amateur.
Yeah.
And then I hire you to train them.
Sure. That's what
Is that a common thing that happens?
That is a common thing. That's how it should happen, because the truth is, if you're a young person, you don't know anything. And I don't mean that bad against young people. I just mean you don't have life experience, right?
Exactly.
Why would you know, right? Why would you know I don't know anything about this studio because I don't have any experience with it. So if I was doing this, I would hire a professional to set up a studio. So the point is yes, what I would do, now here's the thing that I believe, and you can put this one in the bank. Winners win and losers lose. C students, if you have a kid and he's 10 and he's getting C's, the dramatic turnaround and the going to Harvard is probably already over, right? But if you have a kid who's precocious, and I mean that in a loving way, and killing it with the straight A's, right, at 10, so winners win and losers lose. And so what I would look for with a salesperson, for a sales force, is I would look for the winners, and I would place some bets and hard chargers, go-getters, willing to learn, and then give them some coaching and training on how to do that. And here's the thing that companies do wrong, that you'll do wrong, by the way. Well, I just need to find some good salesperson. No, you don't. You need a good training program. You are the good salesperson. You have the pitch. You have the presentation. You teach them. For example, if there were salespeople in my company, they're not. I'm just, I do what I do. But every single salesperson that worked for my company would say, hi, I'm with the Jim Wrigley organization. We teach people how to make more money.
Yeah.
And if any salesperson ever didn't say that when I went with them on a call, then I've got the wrong guy, because how simple is that, Nathan? Nathan, I gave you, and now here's where people freak out. I gave you a script. Here's the script, right? I'm with the Jim Wrigley Corporation. We teach people how to make more money. We're saying that for purpose. And the purpose is we're going to get them to stop resisting, start listening, ask the question, how do we do that? And then, by the way, the movie continues. We roll from there.
So, yeah,
and that's what we need to do with them.
I struggle with this idea of this. We had a sales guy that would always be, at Rabbit would always be like, hey, what's the phone scripts? And I'm thinking, like, man, if you're too dumb to not just figure out to write your own phone scripts and just call and find out what happens, why are you even here? On the other hand, I'm saying, well, I don't pay you a ton, so it's probably just my job to provide this and be a good boss and give you everything you need to succeed.
That one, Nathan.
I know it's the right one. I'm just saying, but that is the constant pull. It's like, why is this person an idiot? But then I take extreme ownership and I go, well, they're an idiot because I haven't trained them.
Yes.
And that's like
who's the idiot?
No,
right?
I get it.
Yeah. And in fact, you just brought up a concept, extreme ownership, and you happen to be very good at it, by the way. I see self-awareness is really important. Extreme ownership. Somebody wants to give me a tip. I want to hear what that tip is, no matter what it is, even if I'm insulted. And in fact, I'll have one. I wasn't insulted. I was fascinated. But you took a look at my book and you said, I'm not so good on the cover. And I'm like, and I didn't want to hear that, because guess what? It's already out, right? So not much I can do about changing it. I still wanted to hear what it was. Because if I write another book, I'm going to be more attentive than I was to the cover. That's called learning. That's self-awareness. So extreme ownership as a business owner. Yeah. Don't ever ask the question, why are my sales guys so I'm paying them all this money, or a lot of money, little money, doesn't matter. Their experience doesn't matter. You could hire somebody 60 years old. If they don't know how to sell Rabbit, they're not. It's on you that you didn't teach.
All right. So going into this training more, do you put together a series of videos? Do you put together a series of documents? How often do you recommend weekly calls or weekly sales meetings? Talk to me about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty cool. It's really straightforward. In my book in particular, I don't call them chapters. I call them acts. I call them actions, right? That's why I call them acts. These are things that you can do and that you can do right now. And I just start at the bottom. So with every company, I start at the bottom, and I would do the same with yours. I would say, okay, tell me what you do, not an elevator pitch, but I'd want to hear, is your opening statement, is the very first thing you say causing me to stop resisting and start listening? And if you say, I'm a plumber, right, we haven't been invited in. So, and then what I do.
Quick side note. I've run 1.9 since I was 18. So I have this, like, except for 2 years off with Rabbit,
right,
but
okay.
I've had this allegiance to it. So when when you tell me, hey, your pitch of we build custom websites, like we do custom branding and websites, and you're like, boring. I'm like, oh, that's true. But it's been my pitch for 9 years, and now I have to change it. And I had to fight with my ego. I had to fight with all these things, right? That's me running a okay, successful company for 7 years or whatever.
Right. Yep.
How hard is it when you're working with a company that has 200 employees and has been around for 50 years and doing that?
Not hard at all.
Really?
And you know why? Because everybody asks me for the same thing. And you know what they ask me for? They ask me for the hockey stick. And what I mean by the hockey stick is the revenue is going like this, and they say, Jim, we want the revenue to go like that. We want the revenue to go up extremely. And usually they say that because they just got funding, right? They just got a Series A or a Series B, or where everyone wants to take their current sales and blow it up in a good way, right? So if you want to make these kind of changes, then we've got to make some simple things. For example, yes, your company's been very successful. Your company's got to hear. Why did you bite on I teach people how to make more money if you were unwilling to hear some of the ways to make more money? So what I say is, and this is a sales technique as well, you don't have to do any of what I'm going to say. I don't have to change the cover of my book.
But don't be mad at me if we don't get the hockey stick effect.
Yeah, but we're not going to get the hockey stick effect. And sure enough, I think your business could explode. And indeed, in the case of that company I told you about, Hydrofacial, the CEO was a friend of mine who started working for me, right? He trained under me, and he left and he formed that company. The guy now has $100 million in his pocket. He did all that in 5 years. Now, that was a whole career, but he became the CEO, and he put in some of these techniques because he said, we're going to do the hockey stick. And one of the techniques that they put in was that literally one phrase. Because that one phrase was so easy for people to repeat. And then what they did was, now we're going to get people to repeat it. And guess who repeats it? The customers. Right? What does Jim Wrigley do? You've just sat with me here for a few minutes. Jim Wrigley teaches
people to make more money.
You remember it. I didn't train you how to. Right? I didn't train you how to do that, though, is my point, right? Yeah. So you're like, oh, yeah. Oh, Jim, who's that? Oh, guy's killer. Great guy. Great friend. Met him in Nashville. Yeah, what was he doing? You won't say I'm an author of a book. It's a crappy book, right? You'll say Jim's a guy who's got some really cool, simple techniques that has turned a number of businesses around. And when I say turn a number of businesses around, I've got a few under my belt that are big stories.
Do you have case studies on it?
I haven't done the formal, and this is on me. So I haven't done the formal document. We were here and we were there and we did this and we did that. I do it a person at a time.
We just did that for a consulting company, and man, does it feel awesome to go to their website to be like 40% growth, cut costs 18%. We did it for like every one of the companies.
I think it's wonderful, and that's on me that I haven't taken it, because one of the things too that I've done as a salesperson, I've said, how much do you need? By the way, the answer to that question is slightly more than you have. But so I haven't built. A lot of people are like, for example, the longest time I didn't have a book.
Yeah,
I heard that all the time.
Do you have a book?
Do you have a book? Do you have a book? Or I'd be done talking or doing something like this, and like, Jim, do you have a copy of a book? And so I finally, just sat down. Let me write it down. And it's not a best. I'm not advocating that's a bestseller. I didn't write it to be a bestseller. I wrote it because I wanted something written down for the people that said, hey, have you got a book?
Yeah, and it's kind of like when you give a talk and somebody goes, can I have a copy of your deck?
Sure.
We can go,
right.
Well, actually, in the book has the deck plus everything else.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Actually, as you mentioned that, I want to just kind of put something out here, because I see this happen all the time. If you get asked the question, can I have a copy of your deck? You did it wrong, right? That you should not end a presentation with, are there any questions? And then there's crickets, and then someone raises their hand. Yeah, can we get a copy of that deck? That means the whole 45-minute presentation just went completely wrong. Can I tell you instead how that should end? It should end with, here's the end. And then this is what you should say, not, are there any questions? It actually is the reverse. And this is what I teach people. It's really easy to reverse. Okay, so I'm done, and I've shown you everything that I'd like to show you. Most people would say, do you have any questions? And I'd say, so rather than me ask you, do you have any questions? I actually have a question for you. Pause, because that pause is really dramatic. What do you think about what I just said? because I just made a sales presentation. I just made a pitch on Rabbit, on 1.9, on the house. Maybe I did the show. Okay, now that we've seen the house, do you have any questions? Or now that we've seen the house, I have a few questions. What did you think about the house? Because that's where all the information is going to flow out for me as a salesperson to try to solve. And if I say, do I have any questions? They'll say, nope, we're good. I'll have no idea what they think about what I just said in terms of making that presentation. So it's really, really important to end the right way. And I'm telling you, you know who does this? Me and the people that I work with, and pretty much nobody else. I mean, I've never seen, the only times that I've seen people end, not with questions, but end with a statement. Okay, now that I'm done, literally, when I'm done, now that I'm done, I have a question. What do you guys think? How'd I do? Your turn. Tell me. Oh, is this good? Was this bad? And man, they pour in. Sometimes with compliments, which is good because that means they want to buy something. Sometimes with well, no, it was good, but I just don't see $5,000 for a microphone, Jim. Great. I love that if I'm selling $5,000 microphones. That's the versus, do you have any questions? Nope. I would much rather have, it was good. That's really, cool microphone. $5,000. Because to me, when you get that...
Just gave you an invitation.
Yeah. When you get that first no, and that's a line that I also tell people, until the first no happens, the sale hasn't really even started.
Yeah.
So just something to think of. You'll run into this now that you'll remember this one.
I know. It's super interesting. I want to get to the training question, but when you... Like the reason that celebrities who people have already bought into them it's so easy for them to sell things. Sometimes, not all, but it's because it's like people just want to, they've already, every bypass, every roadblock is gone. And it's like, I just want to be near the celebrity. I'll buy whatever.
Right.
And I think that's like a really cool effect that anybody can have if they position themselves right.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason a celebrity can do that is they're positioned right.
Sure.
And you can also position yourself right.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you know the phrase, this is a phrase that I mentioned as well. If you want to cast a large, this is why that works. If you want to cast a large shadow, stand next to the light. And if you think about that, right? So there's a light behind me. I stand right next to it, and it's going to make me look like 40 feet tall right down the driveway. So if you want to cast a large shadow, stand next to the light. For example, one of the things that I do when I'm selling, there's a company called Built. I was there when there were 5 people. There was a guy making some sales calls, and he was literally, and if he watches this, he'll laugh because he'll remember he was sweating because it was his first sales call. That company has $1 billion valuation now 5 years later.
What? How much equity did you get for consulting with them?
So I did get, absolutely. And now, unfortunately, I got bought off the cap table because the real money came in, the private equity came in. They said, Jim, it's time to go. I'm like, actually, it's kind of not time to go. And they're like, and they were very nice about it. I got paid very well, but I'm no longer in the deal because I was a consultant. I got equity, and then when it turned into real money, it was. But I've got a very nice check for that. In fact, a buddy of mine had a great line. For the short amount of time that you were there, and for the big impact that you made, you got paid very well. Because that's another thing too with salespeople, which I think is cool. It's dollars per hour. It's always dollars per hour. If you work for 10 years to get a deal, and here comes the $100. Not so much, right? I want to do dollars per hour, and that was a tremendous dollars per hour. So, but standing next to the light. So when people say, well, what have you done? What do? I stand next to the light. Are you familiar with this company? No, I'm not. Well, look them up because another company, my first company that after Donna Bradstreet, I went to a company called Private Business Incorporated, and we sold an accounts receivable financing system. And what was interesting about that is we got $100,000 of receivables in the bank. They've done $40 billion worth of loans. I remember when we would get $100,000 line of credit set up for a small business, and we would be like, we're killing it.
Yeah.
$40 billion. My
friend's a software consultant for a company that just hit the unicorn mark. I mean, they're not at $1 billion. I think they're 800 million was their last. I mean, they're near it.
There's another word for $800 million. Plenty. Right.
And he's just getting hit up by VCs every day who have no clue about anything other than he's listed as one of their, because he has his own company.
Sure, yeah.
And then he's also listed as one of their consultants.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking, well, his other company hasn't raised any money. I should look into this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it's because he's associated with that unicorn.
Yep.
How do you structure those deals? If you go to a company, you say, look, I'm the dude. Here's my resume. I've helped other startups explode. I'll help your startup explode. I want like, how do you structure that?
So it's actually really easy. It all depends on what you want, right? And that, I know that sounds like, and in fact, I've had a couple of clients go, no, we're not doing it that way. In the case of filling in for, this is a funny story. When I filled in for Joe Montana, who could not show to his presentation, so I did it last minute. I said, how much is your fee? And I said, how much were you paying Joe Montana? Right? And I use that story a lot because the truth is what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? I'll tell you what I would like. I would like my value, and you can't possibly pay me that. You would never pay me that. So in the case of that company I just mentioned, I got some equity. I played a big role. They use the very sales techniques that I talk about to this day. They've hired a lot of salespeople. They're a much younger company than me. In terms of, you know what I mean? They're all 30-year-old young tech wizards, but they're using old school technology. And so how do I get paid? It's like we work it out. And I tell everybody that. I had one recent situation where a company called Stake, Stake, cool little company. They needed help. They were a startup. And they said, well, how are we going to do this? I said, we're not going to do it. You don't have to pay me. I said, you don't have any money, right? You're a startup. You have a cool idea. I'm very interested in it. I've seen these things go big. I think I can help. So let's just do this for 6 months. Don't worry about it. He came back, no. Nobody works for free. And that's exactly, in my view, how life should go, right? So he picked a number that he was comfortable with. And I said, okay, if you want to do that, that's okay. And that's what he did. He actually, while I was going, he upped it because he picked a number, which I was like, I wish he picked a little higher number. But as he raised capital, he said, Jim, we raised some capital. I actually helped on some of that capital raising, and he raised the number. So if you get hung up on money.
So you're saying you provide enough value to where they feel obligated to give you equity and they pay obligated to give you cash, and it just works out.
And it just works out. And it should go that way. Butch Harmon is a golf coach. He coaches Phil Mickelson. He coaches high school kids to get on their high school team. The high school kids' dads pay a different number for Butch Harmon golf lesson than does Phil Mickelson, right? So it just all depends. But I will promise you, if you want to make money, if you want to attract money, provide value and let somebody decide what that value is. And if they're cheap, by the way, there's a really good answer. Just don't work for them again, right? I mean, it's like, thank you. Oh, that's what you thought this was worth? Cool. I'm good. Thank you. Gracious. Wonderful. Oh, you couldn't afford anything? Absolutely still happy because I hear from people that, you changed my life. So if the young salesperson that I trained at that company that didn't pay me any money still feels that way,
this guy,
we're good.
I sent him a deal that's like, I don't know, $45,000 a month. He's got an IT company, and he's like, well, that qualifies for the maximum referral fee of $500.
Yeah.
And I go, you can just keep it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
like really? That's your maximum referral fee?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If somebody sent me a $600,000 a year deal,
right,
I would send them more than $500, and then I wouldn't brag about it. I was like, this guy just has no clue about anything.
That's right. And that company is going to suffer for that. But there are other things that happen in life as well. So for example, as you know, I heard about a business that you had, a referral business. I made calls on your behalf. I made more than one call. In fact, the meeting that you got, I had to work on it. I had to work on it. I kind of, I had to do my process. I had to get them. I really think this is
now
good.
I feel bad for not closing it.
Well, no, you don't, because guess what? You invited me to a podcast, 6-8 months later. So sometimes it isn't even monetary value, right? So who knows what comes out of this? There might be a customer out there that says, hey, Jim, I saw you on the podcast. I'd love to. So you just can't. You get too tied up with worrying about money. You're not going to get the money.
All right. So let's finally go back into the training.
Okay.
I hire a sales group of all C players. I bring you in.
Well, don't do that. Go ahead.
I hire people that want to win, are ambitious, but don't know what they're doing.
Way better. Okay. Thank you. Don't just necessarily hand me C players.
And so my thing is, do you give them booklets? Do you give them videos? How do you get them up to speed? And then how often are you meeting with them? And then you were talking about how, well, I don't have chapters. I have
acts, which is actions. Yeah.
I have actions. And then I interrupted you because I got tangent, but let's go on that.
Okay. So what I do is I use exactly what I teach. While I'm teaching and I'm using it all the time. So what I would say to the business owner, and you are a business owner, so this is easy. I would say, Nathan, tell me about the team now. Tell me what you like about the team now. This is called how to have a conversation. There's only 4 things you need to know to have a conversation. What are you doing now? What do you like about what you're doing now? What do you dislike about what you're doing now? And what would you change? So literally, and this is what consultants do. You've heard this, right? They take your watch and they tell you what time it is. So Nathan, what are you doing now? Well, we've got a product and this is the thing and this is our pitch and this is our motto. And what do you like about it? Well, I love the product. I mean, we've got a great market and the market fit is fantastic. What don't you like? Well, I got a bunch of boneheads as sales reps who aren't, just not getting it done. I don't know why they're not getting it done. Okay, well, I'd like to get them trained. What would you like to get them trained on? Right? And so the first thing I would do is have that kind of whole process where I would work through that and understand what the company, where they were and what they had. So then I would learn a little bit about the company and they'd say, okay. And then I just screw on this hat that says, okay, if this is my company, what would I do? And I would come back to the business owners such as yourself and say, okay, now that we've talked about what you have now, what you like, we're going to keep what you like. If something's working, we're going to keep it. What you don't like and what we would change. And then what we do is we just go back to the persuasion cycle, which is those 7 techniques, and we teach them one at a time. So that's really simple to do. We get a good, simple resisting to listening. We get a good, simple listening to considering, and we put this all in the CRM and we build a pipeline that's predictable. And like that, I'm serious about that, we're making money. Now, and when we get stuck, when you say, well, what do you do? What's the cadence? When we get stuck, that's where we slow down. Some of the things can happen really quickly. Sometimes we get stuck on just step 1. I'm with a client right now. They're called Homebinder. They're lovely people. They're working right now on step 1 because they're not sure. And even the chairman of the company came to one of the meetings is like, wow, we don't know what to say. And he was okay with that. He actually stopped my presentation, said, you know what? I know we only have a certain amount of time, Jim. Can we stay right here? And he was really smart about that because they as a company, they really didn't know what that first resisting to listening or that first worm on the hook to get people to even be interested was. And here they were trying to run a company. And by the way, they're loving it because we've come up with a good one.
So I hire salespeople, and where I have fallen short is their playbook for outreach. So the things to say, demos, all that. I'm not saying I've done great, but like the real thing is like, how do we get more clients? And I'm like, I guess get on LinkedIn. Like I just don't have good answers. Do you teach, like, do you look at a certain business, okay, your business is going to work with cold calling or your business, like how do you approach, like if the problem is like anybody can close a warm lead, like when somebody puts a call on your website and you can't close them, then you just suck at sales.
Well, but you do, but you know what? Just because they booked a call on your website doesn't, first of all, how many calls over the rails on your website do you get? Now, maybe you get a lot, but most of the people that I've worked for, inbound leads are like, not really.
That's what I'm saying. But when you get inbound leads, they often close.
They do.
And so
right.
the goal is, of course, outbound.
Right.
And I mean, I had a friend that had like a incredible job. It was all inbound leads. That's all he worked.
Where is that job? Where's that job? Because I want that job
I was
too.
like, gosh, that'd be my dream.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And because they grew too fast.
Well, they have huge market demand, which is rare for a business.
Yeah, they had huge market demand. They'd had a bunch of good press, and they didn't have enough salespeople. So he just answered calls all day, people wanting to give them money.
Yeah, right,
like, and you got paid commission? I was just like...
Because someone had to answer those calls, so the answer is yes. Yeah, right.
But for the vast majority of businesses who have to go and get it, do you work with companies on here's going to be the playbook to go and get it?
Yes. So this is the thing I've said a million times. Million times, way too many. Without a prospect list, you got nothing. You don't have a job. And I know lots of salespeople without a prospect list. And a prospect list, I spend painstaking time in the book talking about it's written. You can put your hands on it, right? And the reason why you can put your hands on it, because we're always prospecting. So for example, at Donna Bradstreet 100 years ago, seemingly, someone would say, hey, Jim, and they knew this. They would say, hey, Jim, do you want to go to lunch? And I'd say, oh, I'd love to go to lunch. Hang on. I just got to call this one guy. And then I'd call 3 people, right? And I would grab my prospect list. Boom, boom, boom.
Want to go to lunch?
And no, I didn't. No. My coworkers were doing, do you want to go to lunch? And what I saw that was as an opportunity to get 3 more calls in just 2 very quick minutes while my coworkers were not selling, right? The people that I was quote unquote competing against to be the number 1 rep, they're frozen. They're waiting to go to lunch. I'm getting more calls in. So the answer to your question of what do you do to get prospects? You have to have a prospect list, meaning who looks like the people that are buying from us now. If you do websites for real estate agents in Dallas, Texas, then you need a list and a phone number and contact information of every realtor in Dallas in your trade area. And if you're a salesperson and you only have Farmers Branch, you need that prospect list right there because it's not moving unless you're making the calls.
Yep. So first is prospect list. You recommend cold calling over cold emailing?
So yes, both. I recommend all 3. I actually recommend 4 now, which is interesting because
social media plays a role, I'm guessing.
No, that's actually not. So here's the 4: calling, texting, emailing. And then the big one that I've been doing a lot and it works unbelievably, I didn't say it very well, blew that whole pitch. Video texting, meaning grab your phone, look into your phone and say, hi, Nathan, whatever, when are we going to do this? And you send a video, you record a video, 1 shot, no review, no take, doesn't matter what you said, and then you text that to people. What that does is that puts you on the top of their stack because if it's a face they recognize, oh, it's Jim, if you've been calling on them. If it's a face they've not recognized, it's who the hell is this?
Another thing that moves deals to the front when you invite them on your podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, well, you can. This is quite the investment to get people to move to the front.
I know, but it's just something that I think that companies have to gravitate towards, which is creating their own media and using their customers to get more customers by creating media for their customers.
Yeah, that's exactly right, yeah. So the video text is cool. I did one in a conference one time, and I had everybody in the room record a video. 1 take, don't care how your hair looks, and it happened to be a large female audience because it was an esthetician kind of thing. 1 take, everybody did it. Send it to someone you love. That's it. And then we're going to put the phones down, and then we're going to come back to that after the break. And the response, it was incredible.
Yeah, something I could do.
So by the way, try that because it's it's fascinating.
Check this out. So I always send follow-up emails all the time. Again,
send a follow-up video.
And so what I'm saying is I send an email. You know what Loom is?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So I could just make it where it's just recording my screen and be like, hey, Jack, just wanted to check in, see how you were doing. I was going to send an email, but I'm working on sending videos. They seem more personal. I feel like you can hear the tone of my voice and tell that I just really want to help you and hopefully get this project moving forward. And then save, hey, just checking in. Or what would you write before the link to the video?
So
just say nothing. Just have a link to the video.
No. Sometimes I'm doing video text.
But I'm saying a video email. So
email.
This is going to be a link to the video from an email.
Yeah. So I would do something again, resisting the listening. I would put something. Check out something that tempts them to open the video. Check out the video. You're never going to believe it. Check out the video. I've got the answer you were looking for.
Yeah, but it's just me saying, "Hey, how are you doing? Let's catch up."
Well, then put something better in the video. right. The idea of a subject line in an email is that you've got some good subject in the email. So same way with the video content. But the idea of putting the video out there is really powerful, and it also shows that you're busy. Like here's the other thing that I think is cool. There was a mortgage person that did this. They were snow skiing. Beer, snow skiing. Prospect list is ready. Hey, Nathan, blah, 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 blah. I want to just let you know that even though I'm out here skiing, your mortgage loan, I just talked to underwriting. It's working out fine. It looks like we're going to be able to get you 3.2. Text gone. Hey, Joe, blah, blah, and just doing that, just sending out emails just showing it. Look, I'm your mortgage broker. I'm on vacation, but I'm still working for you. Powerful.
Yeah.
Crazy powerful. And what this does is it separates you out from other people. So, and that's why there was a time, you don't remember this time likely, but there was a time when you didn't call anybody on their cell phone, which is weird to say. And you got a laugh out of you. But yeah, it was like cell phones were called car phones. They were mounted in the car. It was a crazy time, and they were expensive and they went by the minutes. And yeah, it wasn't a thing. But now you text them. Now how did you get this number? You deal with that.
So so much about sales, and you've worked with all these tech companies. Have you ever thought or had ideas for, here's a piece of technology I want to develop for salespeople?
Boy, I wish, man, because if I did, then I would. So I've never had so far in my career, and probably not going to have, and I don't mean that in a pessimistic kind of way. I haven't found, when I see it, the soft chocolate chip cookie was the one that I thought about, right? And they didn't have, but I remember when there was Chips Ahoy and they were these crunchy dry cookies. I'm like, why can't they make a soft, chewy chocolate chip cookie? And all of a sudden that they did, right? But no, I haven't seen any great technology. I haven't been ahead of the curve on, what salespeople really need. What I think salespeople really need, and this is just what I do, I think they need some techniques. I think they need to have some skills that they can master. I think they need some basic training. By the way, one of the things I do all the time is I say, okay, so just quick show of hands, last time you were at a sales training event? Nobody. And I'm like, really? Wow. And I'm like, really? This is done in Brand. This is Xerox. This is a software. When was the last time you had a sales meeting with your team, right? Full blown, we're going to talk about just sales.
For me, when I had a big sales team, it was like 2 times a week.
Okay, good. All right, good. Well, then but man, a lot of them don't have that kind of training stuff. They just don't do it.
But most of the time it was like, hey, we're calling all these people. We're making no progress. We're signing no deals. What do we do?
Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, I love that question. So if you said, hey, Jim, we've got all these people. We're making all these calls. We're making no progress. What do we do? That's my favorite phone call on the planet, because what we would do is we would take the persuasion cycle that I've talked about many times here in this little conversation and just work out and here's what we do. We give them a number. Where are we stuck? So did that guy see, now here's another thing on demos. Did that guy see the demo? Right? Okay. Did he listen to the demo? Yes. No. Did he listen to the demo? Because a lot of times we get an appointment like, okay, and they're multitasking and they're not really even engaged in the demo.
Yeah. So I've hopped on calls for our referral software, and my technique is to warm them up by talking about how I came up with the idea. I'm an avid podcast listener. Podcast listeners always promoting their affiliate links. I thought, wow, what if I created a software that created an affiliate link for every customer of a business?
Sure.
So I did, and then we launched it. And the first company we launched it with added $10,000 a month in new recurring revenue in the first 6 months.
Wow.
And so that's the story. And so now we're live at apartment complexes, we're live at car washes, we're live at tons of gyms, and we're talking even several franchises that could take us from right now at our 30, 40 customers to several, like 100 customers overnight if we go live with all these franchises. And so I have nothing to sell you. I just want to show you how it works, and you can determine if it's a good fit for you, because a lot of people have, and it's not for me pushing it. Like, you'll know if it's going to work for you. And so my goal is that they've hopped on this call. I'm like, all right, here he is trying to sell me something. Here he is trying to show me this software I don't need. And I'm trying to say, look, here's the data of the success. Here's how I came up with it. I'm a pretty cool guy. And then if I can get them to break through, then they'll watch what I see and be like, all right, this could work.
Right. So I'm going to give you a little better formula.
Perfect.
And the formula, and remember, all my stuff is really easy. So here comes another formula.
I'm 14 and a half. So, way more. I want to hear
You're not 14 and a half. Why you? Why me? Why now? That's the formula. So what you do is you get on the phone with your person that you just described and you say, okay, the reason why I'm talking to you is you have a car wash and you have referrals and you have customers and you could benefit from a system like mine. And the reason why I chose you is we're looking for someone in the Dallas area. We want our first ever car wash person in the Dallas area. I know you're the number one car wash person in the area. You've got 10 locations. That's why you. Why me is I invented something. And what I invented is a referral program that can get a lot more people to the car wash, right? And so then you tell them a little bit of why and how you invented it and how it works. And then you say, and the reason why me is because I have this thing ready to go, but what I want, so now you know a little bit about me, tell me about you, right? So why you, why me, why now? And the why now is, we have something here and that's why this call. And then what you want to get to is why not. So I'll do the formula again. Why you, and you structure it. You just think about it ahead of time. Why you? So you do a little research. Why me?
Why? So why?
So you're answering the whys for the people.
I know. So my first thing is to answer why their car wash needs it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly, why you chose them. You chose. Magic word, chose. The reason why I'm calling you, That's why you. The reason why I'm calling you, now you have to fill in the blank with something genius, which I can help you with if I'm working with you as a client. But most people know why, we'd love to have Joe's Car Wash. We know why we'd love to have Joe's Car Wash. They're the biggest car wash in Dallas, right? If we're looking for a car wash. So the reason why I'm calling you, right? The reason why, so it's why you, why me, right? I've invented this thing. I've done this thing. I work for a company that does these certain things. I think it's a good fit. And the reason why now is we're going to do some kind of promotion to put it together so we can take your group and my group and put them together. What do you think? Right? And when you do that, what do you think? That's the magic. They're going to say something, well, we can't do it right now, which is the why not, right? And when you get the why not, now you have the hidden objection. We've all heard the term hidden objection. My job as a sales coach is to get people to uncover the hidden objection so we can solve the objection. And I hope during this podcast we'll talk about a way, because there's another technique for solving objections. We can do it now or later, but I hope we make sure that we kind of cover that.
Let's go right into it.
So why you, why me, why now, why not leads to objections. And then we have another technique called feel, felt, found. See how I'm breaking this down in really simple terms? So we've got the first four, which we just covered. Feel, felt,
Do you
found.
give people like some type of document for them to remember all these acronyms? Like
Yeah,
all
it's
these
called
things?
a book. I wrote a book. It's all, but Nathan, it's so simple because when I'm talking about the chapters in the book, it's a skinny book.
And I'm hearing all this during a very tense time. I'm guessing you're working with companies during a 6-month, 9-month period where it's just like you're slowly, it's not like you introduce all of them in one day and then they have to remember it all. Right?
I actually can do it pretty quickly.
But they're not going to remember it all if you give them all this information. It's information overload.
Well,
right?
it's really not information overload.
I don't remember anything other than what you do.
There you go. Which is the important part. Which is the important part. Let's talk about feel, felt, found for a second. And the answer to the question is yes, it takes time to learn these skills. And one of the things we do, we put them in practice out in the field, but I do cover them quickly. And then we do have breakout sessions to go, and we do have working sessions and things like that. Objection handling only happens one way. It's really easy.
See, why don't you create like a software that like teaches people through it?
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
But before we'll talk about that, let's talk about how feel, felt, found works, because it is really an important technique. So it's feel, empathy first, right? Felt, I agree, so agreement, and then found a new path forward. So if you said, Jim, I'm trying to think of something you might object to. Jim, I don't want to pay to have my salespeople come trained.
Let's actually do this. Let's do a customer canceling referral software. And then we don't want this software
But that
anymore.
never happens. So why would we do a customer canceling the referral software?
It does, because I'll tell you how I respond to it.
Go ahead. Yes, tell me.
Customer reaches out and goes, hey, it's just not working for us.
Right.
And I go, I completely understand. I'm so sorry about that. Would you want to hop on a call and just make sure that we're using everything? We're using the business pages. We actually effectively know how to download reports. We know how to effectively, we're making sure that everybody's actually using it and is creating their pages. Maybe we could give you a list of everybody that's created a page, and you could kind of send some cold emails to remind them, or, they're warm, they're your customers, to remind them, hey guys, we have this referral program. We want to give you money. And so I just kind of worked on like, hey, I completely agree that it's not working. You shouldn't have to pay us. Here's some ways forward. That's what I do.
Sure, that's what you do. And what's interesting about all the sales techniques that I teach is you are a good salesperson. You've been successful. You just don't know what you're doing. And I don't mean you don't know what you're doing as in...
I don't have a process for it.
You don't have a...
Far-felt, whatever.
Yeah, see, you just went whatever. But teaching people how to do it, this is how I teach feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found. Empathy first. Feel. Agreement second. Felt. Feel. Felt, found, new path forward third. That's how I drill it into people. So now let's talk about what happens. The very first thing when there's an objection is we need to have empathy. Oh my God, I appreciate, you want to cancel? My goodness, that hurts my heart, but I appreciate how you feel. That hurt, and that's a great line. And here's what I do for people. I put lines in the can that this is why the salespeople love it, because they can remember it. If that's something that you might say, if it doesn't fit you, we'll get a better line, but it's empathy first. So, oh my God, that hurts my heart, but I appreciate how you feel.
When you tell somebody, like, oh man, this is going to hurt, they instantly are like, well, I don't want him not to be able to pay his rent. Like,
yeah. But the line, that hurts my heart. You're the owner of the company. So I total empathy for you. Oh my goodness, I appreciate how you feel. It hurts for me to hear that, but I appreciate it. In fact, I agree with it. If you're saying that our software can be somewhat cumbersome or whatever it is, that whatever is their objection, I agree with it. I'm not going to fight you on this. What that does is that positions the new path forward. It's so powerful. Feel, empathy first, felt, which is the agreement second, and found is the new path forward. So it would sound like this. I appreciate how you feel. That hurts my heart, but I'm glad you spoke. That's wonderful. Is there any, just total empathy, total, man, you're paying me money and you're not getting value. That's on me. That's full ownership on me. You've done nothing wrong in raising your hand in objection to who I am. Let that sink in. These are paragraphs, not sentences, right? And you do it all different ways. Then felt. And in fact, I felt the same way too. I've been talking to the tech team that we need to get the phone bill more readable. If you don't know who you called, and of course you're frustrated. You're gaining their confidence, right? So let's do this. And that's the new path forward. And friends of mine that are watching this podcast are going to go, oh my God, he's talking about, let's do this, is just lead them to a new path forward. Here's what we found. When we fix that, change that, do better education on the product, we found that people can be really successful with that problem. This is a problem that we can solve. Would you like to work on it together? And when you go with that kind of approach of feel, you've already given them empathy, you've already agreed with them, you're not fighting with them, now you're just making a suggestion to solve their problem. You know what objections are? A cry for solve my problem, not bye, not see you later.
Yeah. It's really funny. We have customers that always complain about having to pay us monthly for all the work we do to manage their website and make sure it's safe and secure and fast and all the things that are super important to their business.
Right.
They don't see value in. And sometimes they go, well, let's just do this. Let's pause the billing for 2 months, check back in 2 months. And I always go, nope. But it's so funny that I always love feels like, let's just do this as a tactic to and I'm like, you're not going to call the shots of my business.
Right. So fair enough, but let's do this. And now this again, codified. It's a technique. It's called the assumptive close. The assumptive close is we're going to assume the path forward and step around the other side of the desk and walk alongside the person. Instead of a contentious situation, we're going to walk with them. And when our assumptive close, when our assumption is, I assume that you want to use the program. I assume you want to buy the $5,000 microphone because you need a microphone. So let's do this. Let's make it $4,000 and we'll pay the other $1,000 after you've made money in your recording studio, whatever it is, right? So it's funny. People know the line, let's do this, but they don't realize it's the technique called the assumptive close. Why? Because they've never been taught the various different kinds of closes. But that is a closing tactic. That is a tactic to tie things up assumptively.
So when you look at sales training guys, which you might not pay attention to if I didn't know
you
probably don't.
I pay big attention. Disagree.
The scummiest of them all is Grant Cardone, right? Everybody knows that.
I have a friend who will go, oh my God, this is the greatest podcast ever.
Right. I mean, that's just everybody knows it. That dude is
he's got an arrogant approach.
The vibe he gives is just oh my God. But then you realize that how he got his start and how he got his money was car dealerships and car salesmen. Mm-hmm. And I've realized you don't get that vibe at all. You're enjoyable. You're not scummy. You're not a show off. It's a compliment when people, I'm not saying this about you, but people said about me and there's a humbleness to you in the sense of people have said, wow, I had no clue you had a nice house. And I was like, what do you, it's just because it's
yeah, what does that even mean,
they didn't see me I guess acting crazy about anything. And they didn't, when there were chances, hey, do you want to spend $100 to do this? I'm like, no, I'm good. Not because I'm cheap, just because it's yep, not part of my plan of what I'm trying to do. And they thought, oh, he doesn't have a lot of money right now. Or I've had people who've thought that I just didn't have any money.
Right.
Which I think is a good thing, by the way.
It is a good thing.
And then hear about an investment I made and be like, what? How'd you do that?
Yeah, right.
And I was like, well, look, just because I'm always on you to pay your bill on time doesn't mean I don't have the money to don't pay your bill.
Yeah,
it just means that for me to run my company effectively, I have to hold you accountable.
Right.
And so I've had look, when I follow up with you 9 times about your invoice, it's not because I need the money. Maybe it is. It could be.
It doesn't matter. It's your money. You've earned that money.
It's because you have a due date of when it's due, and my job is to hold you accountable so you don't think you can ever push me around for maybe a day that I do need it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I realized, again, scum me. That doesn't mean, I've met him actually a couple times, and he was even worse in person. So, but he's got a vibe, which is just a different vibe than you. And I realized, well, you've worked with like tech companies, and you've worked with like genuinely people that are like want to change the world and have built cool things and just don't have a clue how to get it out there. You've just worked with a different type of person than him, who's worked with people that have a car, have something that really nobody needs, that doesn't really, like, some people need him, some people need, and it's like how to convince them. Like, I was talking on the phone with my friend Pierre, and I was like, what's the price of the he works at Porsche, and I was like, of the Porsche with the hard top convertible, it comes down
a lot.
He's like, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be like $2,000 a month. And I was like, what? I was like, no, what's the price of it? And he was like, well, depending on credit. I'm like, no, what is it cost?
Yeah, because he didn't believe you could buy the car. Yeah, he didn't believe you could walk in and buy the car.
No, it wasn't that at all. Like, he knows my finances. He's a sales guy, and how he sells to people is he tells them they're monthly.
Right, yeah, which is wrong. He's not listening.
That's how most people sell cars. I remember when I got my car, the guy kept going, yeah, it's going to be this a month. I was like, stop doing this. I was like, I'm paying for the car in 2 months. I'm putting like half down now, and I'm paying the next half next month.
Yeah, right.
I was like, so stop talking to me like I'm a dude that buys Kias, okay? Like, I'm not. It's not that I'm crazy rich, but like I'm buying something that's well within my means. Okay?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So please tell me the price of the car, and we can negotiate the price of the car. Stop doing this monthly thing with me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So let me say this, and I'll just call this in defense of Grant Cardone, who is, everybody's who they are. So Grant did work in the car business, and in the defense of the car business, there is a statistic that 95% of the people that walk off won't come back. They all say, so it's a very frustrating business. It's a big purchase for people. It's the biggest ticket most people will do. They buy it. What do you buy a car? 3 times, 5, 6, 8 in a lifetime? Don't jump in and say, well, I buy one every. Most people is what we're talking about.
Is that really it?
That's really it. Think about it. Cars go 7 years. Yeah. So, 10, right? So the point is, you're not on a car dealership very often, number one. And the buyers are liars is something that I teach to people all the time. I'll be back. I'll be right back. I'll be back in a second when I get my wallet. I mean, oh my God, there's a lot of I'll be back that comes in the car business, number one. So they're very aggressive because they know they've got one. They're treating it like they've got one shot. So with Grant, he grew up in the car business, and so he knew he had one shot. And so he's very arrogant about it. He's very quick, and he also has some very good techniques, right? But what he doesn't do, because of his arrogance and the way he approaches it, he doesn't show people that he cares about them. And I think I've mentioned to you already, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care about them. That is a technique that we can teach to people, that we can drill into people. And when I see arrogance as a coach, I know that the deal is not going to happen. You're not going to hire Grant Cardone to come teach you wouldn't take him for free, right?
Nope.
But you'd hire me because I'm going to teach there is a right way to do sales.
Yeah, because my brand matters. And I think if my sales guys start beating people till they say yes.
You'd hate that. You wouldn't want to be rich.
That would not be the deal
if you were wealthy because your company was killing it, but you were famous for beating people into the ground, then no, that's not the case.
It's kind of like I briefly met one of maybe the founder or the owner of Advance Financial in Nashville.
Okay.
And I just thought, man, like, it's not slavery. Like, you're not a slave owner.
Right.
But you've gotten rich off of people.
Oh, Advance Financial being a payday loan place.
Like, you've got, and this guy's killing it. And he takes pride in how much they pay their employees, because if they don't pay them, they leave because they feel bad about the stuff they're doing. Because essentially it's like somebody gets a loan.
I know the payday.
Yeah, and I just think like, ugh, like, how do you even sleep? How do you even function? Right. How do you even just live life? And so there's just these morals that it's like, I don't know. The key is to never get in the business, because I understand. I do have enough empathy to say, like, look, he founded the business because he needed to make a living like everybody else. He's made it incredibly successful. But at the end of the day, when you're advertising as a payday loan place open 24/7, you're just preying on weak people.
Yeah, no, that's right. And they've got they try to have laws against those businesses, but even those laws don't succeed as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
And so there's just like, that's never what I would want. Is like, if I could build a company that could be as successful as Advance Financial, which none of my companies are, none of my companies combined are.
You don't want that.
It's still okay.
You'll take,
because at least
you'll take where you are in life over the owners of Advance Financial. Yeah.
And I think that's how I look at Grant a little bit too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, so that's all. It's just kind of, he's a creature of where he came from, and but techniques are good, and he teaches techniques, and word phrasing and processing and things like that is important, and so I think his books are successful. And so yes, I follow all. I want the edge. All right, I'm an athlete who wants the edge. Now I don't want steroids to get me.
Who are
the
some
edge.
of your favorites?
There's an old one, old guy is
Zig Ziglar. No.
Zig Ziglar is good. Tom Hopkins is actually the one that really got me started. I think it was called The Art of the Sale. He had really simple techniques. And in fact, I'll just say this because he's an old guy. I mean, like, I don't know that he's alive now, actually. But one of his things but I learned from him things that are easy to remember. And here's something that was easy to remember. He had a thing called Goya. Now, how easy is it to remember Goya? You couldn't remember Feel, Felt, Found, but we're going to work on you on that one. But Goya stands for get off your ass. And that was one of his things that he talked about as a sales technique, that if you wanted to make a sale, then you got to get off your ass. I was talking to a guy who sold real estate the other day, and he was just using the same technique. He said, Jim, we're going to sell your house. We're going to sell your house because we're going to make phone calls. Because in the end, that house is an it's an inanimate object. It's just sitting there until I make phone calls. Right? So sales is interesting because a lot of sales is just how hard do you work? And I've broken down in my book a concept that really works. There are only 3 things in sales that we can control, and that is the attitude that you take towards people, right? That's the how do you make them feel. It is the quantity of calls that you make. That's the get off your ass, the Goya, and then the quality of what you say. And everything else is outside of your control. So the economy, the pandemic, there's just the territory change, the product change. We can't get materials from China, so we can't. There's all kinds of various things that happen. But if you as a salesperson focus on, and that's kind of the format of my book, just the attitude that you take, the quantity of people that you talk to, and the quality of what you say, it's amazing what you can do as a C student coming out of University of Connecticut.
It seems like if people make calls 9 to 5 every day, closing deals, that can get a little boring, a little mundane. Do you recommend that they go play golf to go meet people, or they go start taking people to lunch, or they just go out and like, what do you recommend for people to, get out in the marketplace while enjoying, like still making their calls and doing stuff, but like, do you recommend that people every certain amount of days or once a week just kind of leave it and try something new, or get out in the market, like break things up?
So actually it's kind of funny. So I like to play golf. So I'll just say I've actually told some people go play golf for no other reason than, you can't work-life balance. Some people are for it. Some people are against it. I'm for it. So, so go play golf is one thing that I would say. You do have to do it in chunks of time, especially if it's cold calling, and especially if you're getting your teeth kicked in, right? So if you're not having success, I have a couple of things that I suggest that people do when you're not having success. And when you're in sales, you're going to have periods of time when you're not having success. So a couple of things. One, every Friday is office day. That's just a rule. And what I mean by office day is if there is housekeeping stuff, if there is fill out your healthcare insurance, if there is do your laundry, if there is your expense reports, and that is a big one for traveling people. With my teams, I like everybody to get their expense reports in on every single Friday. Don't let it go past. So Friday, by the time Friday afternoon wraps up, we got all our housekeeping stuff out of the way, and then Sunday night I do a to-do list. But the big thing that I advise people in terms of a cadence of how hard you're working is if you are getting a bunch of no's or you're not having success, stop. Stop. That is the time to take a break. But this is the kind of break that I like them to take. Call your favorite customer. Call a success, right? Because what I've said before in this conversation is there is a process. It's a 7-step cycle. So call someone who's enjoying what they're doing and hear from them about how they're enjoying what they're doing, right? Catch up. They'll appreciate the phone. Oh, yeah, no, that's great. These things the thing I bought from you is working out fantastic. Great. Do you know of anybody else that I might talk to? Oh, as a matter of fact, it's funny. I was going to call you. Yes, the company up the street needs your services. You see how I just broke my cycle? So whenever you're having a bad run, call a favorite customer. Call a friend. Call somebody who's going to get you uplifted, because when you get uplifted, then what happens is your energy, when you're down, when you're losing,
That energy, they feel it.
They feel it, and you feel it, and now you're hating your job, and now you're not good at your job, and then you're off script and you're off energy. And so, yeah, I absolutely believe it's not work. It's not push through. It's change.
Yeah, something I've heard said, and I completely agree with, that is like if you want the customer that pays you $50,000 a month, then you got to act like you don't need that customer.
Sure, that's
because they can
right.
sense like how guys charge. What's the guy who's got his own island and is very tall and sells at arenas and is a motivational guy. He's the most famous
Tony
of all time.
Yeah,
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I'm like, jump in when you know the answer.
So you look at like Tony Robbins,
right.
and it's like that guy charges $50,000 an hour for one-on-one coaching.
Right.
He might even charge more.
Yep.
And you know why people are able to do that? Because people know that he doesn't need that money. Like they know there's like, he's got the F you attitude
right, yeah.
goes so far.
Right.
And that's the same thing of like, if you just got off a call with a customer talking about how awesome our referral software is, and then I get on a call with somebody, I'm like, yeah, I just got off the phone. I go to that call feeling great because I'm like, another success story.
That's right. And what you do is you sell from success stories. One of the things that you always have to do, is you have to be ready to talk about what somebody else is doing. Tony Robbins is a perfect example. People pay him a lot of money because they want a piece of him, right? And so if you're having success with customer number one and you tell the success story that you've had with customer number one, for example, in your case, you have this great success with the car wash dealership, and now you tell that to the local gym owner, and you talk about how you've done this for the car dealership and we can do it for the gym owner as well, or for the Honey Baked Ham store, right? Let me tell you what we did for Honey Baked Ham. It's a great story if you have a great story with Honey Baked Ham.
Honey Baked Ham, what a seasonal business. I've never once heard
Are you kidding me there? I go there all the time.
I would love one. I wonder if there's one in Dallas. I would love some. I haven't had a Honey Baked Ham in 2 years.
Oh my God. They have the best sandwiches going.
Yeah, that is so funny. I look at honey. Yeah, I've never had it outside of Thanksgiving or for Christmas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's funny.
But man, that line is out the door during those times.
Well, and go there for lunch. Lunch is fantastic.
Yeah, so they're a sandwich shop too.
They're a sandwich shop too, and in fact, I bring up Honey Baked Ham actually because I just had a good experience. That is a sales experience that happened at Honey Baked Ham of all places. I went and I ordered my basic ham sandwich, and instead of chips, I asked for a cookie, and the person behind the counter said, it made a face like, I don't know how to do that. I said, oh, no, stop. I don't want to get you in trouble. Last thing I need is for you to have to explain to the boss, why I got a cookie. She said, no, I just don't know how to do it. And what was interesting about that is after I was kind to her, right? And I'm coming to a sales technique. After I was kind to her, she said, which cookie were you looking at? And I said, well, that was the easy one. It's the one that said, Jim. And she laughed. And she said, okay, well, I'll never be able to sell that one. Why don't you take that cookie? So I tell that story because this is what really happens in sales all the time. People respond in kind. Somebody has to start it. Somebody has to start a fight, and somebody has to start a smile. And I know that sounds really silly, but I was extraordinarily nice to her. I was extra nice to her. I was gregarious. I brought the energy into that room, and when I did, she actually frowned because she's like, cookie instead of chip. Like, what? And when I saw that I had rocked her up, right, rocked her world, I backed off. I made it okay for her. I made a safe place for her, and then she made a safe place for me. What's interesting is we're talking about honey. I go there all the time. And guess what I always get? I get a free cookie.
Yeah.
I know her name. She knows my name. She knows how to make the sandwich. That's how relationships start, and salespeople should remember that. So people respond in kind is something they actually wrote in my book. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to do something for other people because as salespeople, we want other people to do stuff for us. And who's going first? The sales guy. The sales guy's always got to be going first, always got to be the higher energy, always got to be the bigger smile.
So I brag about how I always get rental upgrades. And this is how I do it.
I have, go ahead. I have a story as well. Go. This will be fun.
I walk in and I say, here's my credit card. Here's my license. I'm not going to ask you if you accept debit cards like the past 50 customers, even though I was like,
you're caring about them.
Yeah. I was like,
right.
Every time I'm here, there's some dude in line next to me who's like, why can't I use my debit card? I was like, how do people not know that you can't use the debit card? Like, how is this a thing? And the guy's like, I know, man. All day. I'm like, well, I'm here to make it easy for you. And then, let there be a pause, type in the info. And I go, by the way, I'm going to allow you to upgrade me today. I don't always, but today I'm in a good mood.
And that
I prefer an Escalade. But if you have, if you just have a Suburban or an Excursion, that will work. And again, I don't always allow it, but today's your lucky day because I'm going to allow you to upgrade me. And so typically they'll laugh or they'll smile and they'll go, let me see what I can do. And so he's
started it.
He'll be in this. I always just get the cheapest thing on Hotwire. So it's like, it's literally like the tiniest little worst car.
With all your success, you're driving the tiniest worst car. No, you're not because you're getting upgraded.
And so I don't always, sometimes you meet Karen. But anyway, he's like, well, I can put you in a full-size sedan. I'm like, couldn't you put me in an Escalade technically? Couldn't you do it?
Right.
And he's like, I could, but I would be in trouble. And I was like, well, I don't want you to get in trouble. So maybe you just put me in a Tahoe. And he's like, all right, let me see again. And then so I just always vibe. And then whatever it is, and most time it is just one class up. So if I get a full-size sedan, the $10 or more car, which is like a full-size SUV, they'll be, okay, I can give you this. Or if I get a small SUV, I can give you a bigger SUV, a medium size.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And so regardless, say, hey, thank you so much, have a great day, whatever. But that's always my trick and my move. And I think there's several things that are going into play. One, I'm like relating with them. I'm asking for it, which nobody ever does.
That's what I was going to say. You're asking, yeah.
And then lastly, it's always the back of my mind. I'm kind of speaking it into existence because I always tell everybody I'm with, I'm about to go get us an upgrade. Watch.
Right, yeah, sure. And speaking into existence is not something that, and one of the things that I do, I'm a lifelong learner. That came out, we've been together a couple days now. That was an interesting thing, speaking into existence, and that I'll be using that for forever. Because speaking into existence is really true, right? If you want something to happen, you have to ask about it, you have to declare it, you have to say, okay, this is where we're going to take this. And sure enough, it's amazing what you can do.
We had a neuroscientist on, and she was saying that your brain, I thought your brain and your mind were the same thing. They're not. One's like an operating system, one's like the hardware.
Yeah, right.
No clue. But she was saying like your mind, which is like the operating system, it must believe it. So if you tell yourself, I'm gorgeous every day, if you don't actually believe it, then it's not going to program your brain to work that way.
Sure, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so it's the exact same thing. It's like I actually I have to walk into that counter like about to get an upgrade or about to get the front parking spot.
Yep. In fact, a better way to say that is the mind can achieve what it can believe. And that's a really powerful statement for salespeople as well, because what you do is you set your mind to what your goals are. You break them down into smaller bites, and then you say, if you want to be the number, I've never seen a number one salesperson, by the way, who didn't first declare it. Nobody backed into it. Nobody got lucky. Nobody's like, wow, that really worked out. Right? The mind can achieve what it can believe. And so you have to tell it something that it can believe. And what's funny too, is you can tell other people's minds, you can change other people's minds too by changing words. Talk about this all the time. The words we choose send way different messages. For example, I like to take the word salesperson and change it into the word helpful person. And I've done this for audiences all the time. I've heard some people say, I'm really bad at sales. I've heard people say that. I've never heard people say, I'm really bad at helping other people. I'm terrible at it. When it comes time to lend in a hand, I'm awful.
I'm not your guy.
I'm awful, right? But what are salespeople really doing? They're helping people to get involved in the product or service that they're supposed to be selling as their job for a living. And products and services exist, or they exist because they solve a problem, or they don't exist. So if we have a solution and someone doesn't buy it, guess what? What did I just call it? We have a solution. It didn't solve a problem. That's why we didn't sell it. It didn't solve a problem, by the way. Maybe it solved a problem, but not at the right price. That's another story. But so if you just change words from from sales to helping, from salesperson to helpful person, it's unbelievable. Another one that changes people's minds is you go from have to get to. So one of the things that I used to have to do, and this is a great example, I used to have to travel all the time. I've got to go to LA. I've got a meeting in LA. Oh my God, I've got a 5-hour flight, right? That used to be the case. I have to go. Now, after COVID, after 18 months of barely being on a plane, there's an opportunity to go to LA, which is something I used to hate. I mean, I love the West Coast when I'm there, but I get to go to LA next week. See the mind change?
Yeah.
It's this little bit, these words are really, really different. And what I do all the time when talking to salespeople is I find these words to make it different with customers, and the meaning of the sentence is completely different. In fact, in the case of get to versus have to, I usually say, what is something you have to do? And all the young moms says laundry. Okay, now I want you to imagine an awful world. A world where you don't have to do Billy the 5-year-old's laundry. And nobody wants that. So it's a privilege to get to do the laundry, right? You don't have to do the laundry. You get to do the laundry because you have a family that you wanted. And yeah, some days it's hard. And I just think when you have those attitudinal things as a salesperson, it's fascinating what a difference it makes.
Do you find that just people being intentional is really the game?
It really is. Yes, it really is.
Because it's all it is. It's like when people are like, oh, my wife won't let me, or, like this. It's like if you were just more intentional and how y'all communicated and how y'all talked about how y'all planned about what your goals were, she'd let you.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I had a guy after my sales training come up to me and say, actually it wasn't a sales training, it was a guy that worked for me over time. And he came up after a presentation. He goes, Jim, I just want to let you know that thanks to you, now watch this, I'm a sales guy. We're trying to make money over here. Thanks to you, I get to see my kids. Really? Not putting that connection together. Yeah, I'm using the techniques that you taught me with my ex-wife, and it's really, really powerful. So what technique are you? Well, whenever she brings up something, I first approach her with empathy. Every single time, no matter how arcane. And empathy is the feel of feel, felt, found, which we've talked about before. So I just remembered for you, if somebody wants to cross a sword with you, go straight to empathy and buy time. Man, I appreciate how you feel. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm drinking all the time and I'm a terrible dad. I totally get that. Whatever it is. And he goes, and when I position it that way, it's amazing how our relationship has changed. He goes, I wonder if I could still be married if I had the techniques that you taught me. I'm like, Brett, I'm teaching you how to make money for the company. Why are we talking about this? And he said, we're talking about this because I just want to thank you because these techniques really change people's lives.
Yeah. It's so funny when people go to repair a relationship after they've made a mistake. That's what they often do. They go, "Hey, remember me, crazy guy? Sorry about that."
Yeah, there you go.
I had this. We at our last place, we move in. I'm assembling the bed on the day we move in, and somebody rings my doorbell 6 times. Now, 6 times says I'm aggressive, I'm mad, I'm here to pick a fight, I'm not going to be happy, whatever the case is.
Yeah, right.
Instead of just doing it once. So I wear a shoulder holster, gun right here, 2 magazines right here, and I look like I just, walked out of an FBI film or whatever, So I'm just, because when you're open carrying several weapons, especially when you open your door at midnight, keep in mind, it's like 11 o'clock at night when this happens. So I open my door and he goes, "Hey man, we're trying to sleep and, and you're just banging it." And then he sees the gun and he goes, "Hey, is everything okay? I just heard some noise. I just got back from town, and actually, I don't have a problem. My neighbor across the street, he heard the noise, and I was like, yeah, we just moved in today, and I'm just getting the bed set up so we can go to bed." Right. And he's like, "Well, hey, welcome to the neighborhood." Just immediate. Now, keep in mind, this gun is what made him
change the mind.
Now, this is what he did for the next 3 weeks. Every time I'd see him outside, he's like, "Hey, how you doing?
Hey, neighbor.
sorry about the other night." Because he just immediately realized in this moment, oh, I'm being dumb, and accepted. All right, I'm being dumb. I need to change this, and he felt bad about being dumb.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's yeah. Attitude is everything. It's incredible how, and what's good for salespeople too is that there's really 3 things, and it's those 3 things I talked about. It's having the right attitude, which is doing that wordsmithing, changing from sales to being a helpful salesperson, being a helpful person. And then the quantity is just how hard you work, and then the quality of what you say.
I think the biggest thing is there's a lot of highly ambitious kids that go on YouTube and watch all these sales guys and watch all these videos and watch all these things, watch all the Grant Cardone, and then you meet them and it's just all fake. It's just all like, oh, you clearly watched a video on YouTube that told you should do this, because it just doesn't feel real.
Right.
How do you break through getting people from being like a weird creepy robot to like a normal human being?
So that's a great question. So, because I hear that all the time. It's like, oh, we're going to go from a script. No, we're going to go from a playbook, first of all. And one of the things, we all watch movies and you'll see great actors. And guess what? There's a script. There's a plan. There's a shot list. There's wardrobe. There's preparation. It's all thought through, and it looks like it's flat out real, right? Somebody dies, somebody cries, somebody tells a joke, and there's it's incredible laughter. So the idea is that all you have to do, it's a little bit of practice, it's a little bit of intention, having a plan. And then when you have a process, right, we're going to try to baby step people through the process. We're not going to try to go too fast. We're going to know where we are in the process, and we're going to just try to get them to the next step. It comes across very natural. So, and in fact, when people say, well, I can't remember a script, I'm like, let me tell you how Hollywood actors remember a script, because I actually had to learn how to do that. They read the first line and they look away and they say it out loud. Then they read the second line and they look away and they say the first line and the second line out loud. And if they forgot it, they look back at the paper. If they didn't forget it, they go to the third line. And it's really funny if you're doing this. By the way, everybody does stuff that's repetition. Go watch a comedian. It looks like they're telling a story. And there's pauses
so you're saying the issue is that they're not rehearsed enough.
They're not rehearsed enough. And by the way, you know what? Also, they're not rehearsed enough because no one rehearsed with them. You just said the word, will they go watch a YouTube video? First of all, I don't think that they're getting, I don't see that. When I don't see salespeople that are like, oh yeah, when I say, have you read a book on sales? I get the answer, no.
So
period. I know that they sell a lot of books.
When I meet multiple marketing
books.
Guys, which are the guys that, if they died tomorrow, I would not care.
Right.
There's not anything more I hate more than multi-level marketing. It's just, to me, it's like if Satan founded an industry or a market, it would be multi-level marketing. Like, right. It's just it's Grant Cardone times 1,000. Anyway, when I meet those type of guys, they just it's just push, sell, fake. And they're saying stuff like, well, Nathan. They're saying my name 800 times. It's because they saw some dude or some dude in the class said, hey, say your prospect's name. It's their favorite word. Your prospect's favorite word is their name. Say it every time. Say it all the time. Just always be saying it. People love hearing their own name. When I hear that, I think, oh, here's a guy trying to sell me.
Not the good ones.
I want somebody to talk to me like I'm just a dude, like I'm a dude working out with them at a gym or something. I don't know.
Not the good ones. When you see an actor who's terrible, it sounds like they're speaking the lines and you're like, because it's not the good ones.
So you're saying I should just have grace and that they'll get better?
No, I'm saying that when you run into people like that, by the way, I know one of the number one multi-level marketing person in the country lives right here in Dallas. And she has a network. And one of the people that's in her, I asked her, how did you do that? And she actually used to work for me as a salesperson at the company, Donna Bradstreet.
No!
You
enabled this!
No, I didn't. She sells vitamins and makes a lot of money. And I asked her, how did you do that? And how does she did that? She's an incredible salesperson. You wouldn't be put off by her at all. Do you know one of the people that's under her? And when I heard this, I was like, you're kidding, right? And she's like, no, I've got several. I said, who's under you? Troy Aikman is under her on this vitamin juice supplement, something for sports athletes, whatever. Troy Aikman is under her. She's on the he's several levels down. You can imagine how well she does because you can imagine what Troy Aikman does with his level of. My doctor, for example, got me on Juice Plus, which is a multi-level marketing, my doctor. So you're talking to yes, some of it's a Fuller Brush. By the way, Fuller Brush people actually make money. There's all kinds. I can't remember the one. Fuller Brush was way too long ago, but there's one that sells cleaning laundry detergent. Safeway, Amway? Is it Amway?
I don't know.
Anyway, so yeah, what I will just tell you this, Nathan, this is stuff you can take away. When you see a sales process that you don't like, it's like watching a wide receiver who can't catch the ball. That's all it is. There's plenty of people that are good at it. There's plenty of people that do it the right way. There's plenty of people that are very successful. So when you see a bad one, and that's the shame of it, when you see a bad one, don't lump them in with me and my brethren, right? Just put
all multiple marketers are bad. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there you go. But like some lawyers have bad reputations, but there's some really good lawyers.
Yeah.
Right? And there's some really good car salespeople too, by the way. There's some car salespeople that do a really nice job. My car salesperson recently at the Toyota dealership, he did a fantastic job. He did an unbelievable job, and he didn't negotiate. But he was so straight up. He said, "Guys, it's COVID." I was there with Terry, and he said, "Guys, it's COVID, and I don't have to negotiate." And you could just tell the way he did that. He said, he goes, and in fact, he said, if you don't buy this truck, someone else is going to buy the truck. And you know what happened, Nathan? We went home to get our checkbook. And when we came back to the dealership, they sold the truck that we bought. I'm like, what was that? Like, I bought the truck. I signed the contract. He goes, yeah, it happens occasionally. While you were sitting here buying the truck, someone was over there also buying the truck, and they drove it off the lot before you could drive it off the lot.
So did you freak out?
We did. We said, that's not right. He goes, I've seen it happen 12 times in my 15-year career. Because we don't know that you didn't know that they were looking at the truck. I didn't know that there was another couple looking at the truck.
So did you get a discount then on another
So
one?
then they obviously created another similar truck, which, the end of the story, it was more money than the other truck that we were trying to buy because it was the features, but they tried.
Did they give you a discount?
Yes, they knocked off anyway.
Good. Good. Make it right.
Yeah, that's right. Make it right. But anyway, that's what happens in sales isn't a bad thing. A lot of people think it is a bad thing. Everybody wants it. Everybody needs it. Salespeople drive the economy forward. Salespeople are the most important people in this economy, and it's the most honorable, best job that you can have. And a lot of people don't think so. And I'm here on this, I'll go to the end, go to my grave telling the people the story. That's a great way to make a living. It's a great career, and it's a really valuable role in every single company. And it's disrespected, by the way, all the way up to the board. It's like all those stupid sales guys.
Is that you're selling your entire life. Like when you're dating, you're selling. When you're negotiating, you're selling. Like everything, your whole life is about selling.
That's right. Yeah.
Like everything you do.
And it's a good skill to have, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so
and in fact, the persuasion cycle that I talk about all the time, that is kind of the basis of how I help companies do better. It was not came up with. That's not the right word. It was an FBI hostage negotiation.
Oh, Chris Voss?
I don't remember the name of the gentleman, but basically they have a process with hostage negotiation, and hostage negotiation is persuading somebody in the exact same way that we're trying to get somebody to buy something. It's the exact same course of actions. It's the same.
Yeah, never split the difference, Chris Voss.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. That is correct. Yeah, it's an excellent book. Yep. So, interesting.
I got my car. There's some issues with it. I go to the dealer, and essentially their ribbity, their fits is like, hey, we're going to give you a $500, give you a $500 check. And I was like, okay, I'm still going to leave a 1-star review. And he's like, well, what's the number for us? I was like, $2,000. And he's like, well, there's no way we could afford that. And I was like, well, I'm sitting here in a $9 million dealership, so you've made some money to be able to afford things. And I was like, I just started like messing with them. I was like, you really can't afford that? I was like, just send me your P&Ls. I'll have my guys take a look at it, see if I can find the 2000 for you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I was like, don't treat me like I'm 12 years old. I'm like, okay, can't afford it. Like,
don't treat me like I'm 12. I'm 14.
Yeah. Like, what is this? We can't afford to do that. And so it's funny. He was like, he set up a call with, I guess, the guy that owns the dealership. Like, we could do 1,000, and it's this thing. And I was like, that's fine. And then so anyway, long story, give 1,000. I leave a 1-star review. And he's like, whoa, we gave that 1,000. So you want to leave a 1-star review. And I was like, well, I told you my number and you didn't get to it. And my experience, I wrote in my review that you gave me 1,000 back. I didn't,
anything just back. Told the truth. Yeah, right. That's funny.
But it was, I love, again, because what is standard practice for me and you is like, I was talking about like, look, like when you go to rent or buy anything, you just take their price and take off 20% and throw it back at them and then see what happens.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And you're like, I've rented homes for 20 years, your own homes, you had a real estate portfolio. Not one person has ever negotiated.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Blew my mind.
Not one person's ever negotiated. Yeah. But that's, people are different stripes and people think the price is the price. So
I'm going to ask an interesting question that I'm able to ask because I know you.
Okay.
You have no kids.
No kids.
But do you have siblings?
I have two brothers. Yes, I do.
So do you have nieces and nephews?
I do have nieces and nephews too.
So I was going to ask a question. When you die, you've had, you have real estate and a career and savings and stock and all the things. Where do you want it to go?
That's a longer podcast than this. Obviously, I've got the nephews and nieces, and one of the things that's interesting that I'm trying to do right now, because I'm 58 and they'll be 58 in 30 years, right? And as you just kind of do the math, they'll be mid 50s, and I'm like, why do they get all the money when I'm not spending the money? So I'm trying to do the right things while I'm alive, and I haven't really kind of put together the will or.
Well, yeah, I asked.
I do have a will. Why?
Because for me, like, life is about impact. And so I often think, like, if I build things the way I want to build them, and obviously I'll be a former U.S. president when I die. So there's a lot of things that go into mind. But ideally, my kids inherit cash flow from many things. That includes businesses and stocks and, businesses, dividends, and real estate. And all of that is actually given to the nonprofits and the missions we believe in, and they take a percentage of that for managing it. So essentially my kids inherit nothing, but they inherit solid jobs that are easy, where they just write checks to people all day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And, ultimately you've worked very hard. You've woken up when you wanted to sleep. You've done the thing when you didn't want to do the thing. You've been in the uncomfortable situation and pushed through. Like, everybody's had some level of success, has persevered.
Right.
And you've built up something. And I thought, for me, like, I'm about to have my first kid and hopefully have more. I know where that's going. And for you, who doesn't have kids, have you thought, like, I've built to this. Do I want to, like, what are the missions and the things I believe in that I could fund with what I've built here? Besides just my nieces and nephews who are smart and educated and will do fine without this.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have not put. It's something that I need to do at some point. At some point, you've kind of crossed that bridge of, okay, I've amassed this. So what now? What do I do with it? I have not, to be perfectly frank with you, really dug into that. So I have an emergency plan if the plane crashes tomorrow. When it's the nephews and nieces when the plane crashes tomorrow. Let's not have the plane crash tomorrow because I need more time to think about where I would want to park that kind of money.
Just asking a challenging question.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question that to be perfectly honest with you, it's a great question actually that I have not thought about. So
when you look at the next 20 years, so late 70s, at the end of, you'll be in your late 70s, what do you kind of want to accomplish or get done, or do you just want to work with cool people?
Working with cool people is a fun thing. And as I mentioned, last night was a really nice experience because I have had an impact on a lot of people. And I want to continue to have that impact on people. I was asked to write the book. I know that sounds really stupid or full of myself, but people always said, boy, you've got really good ideas and you need to be able to pass those ideas on. We need to be able to codify that. And so that's why I finally sat down and, okay, I'll put it in a place where it can be saved. But I will tell you, as a person, you've heard it way too many times, who teaches people how to make more money, I have some really close friends. In fact, one of the things that, if you ask me the question, what am I most proud of? I have employees. They're all employees. I mean, if you look across who my friends are, a lot of my closest friends are people that I know because they reported to me, which is weird, right? And I think that's something I'm very proud of and something that I'm really touched by when people come up and say, man, as a young person, I didn't know what I was doing. I was even a young person at the time, right? When I did know what I was doing. That's kind of how I got into this whole sales consulting thing. It just seemed to come to me. It's something that I was able to figure out and pass on. So in terms of a legacy, I have a lot of people that had a lot of success that really kind of took their life.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, what do you want to do these next 20 years?
So I want to kind of keep doing that. To be perfectly frank with you, I want to be able to pass on the message. I want to see somebody else. One of the things I haven't done as much of is I want to coach coaches. Meaning I don't have an organization that's the Jim Wrigley organization. I do have a jimwrigley.com where you can find me, et cetera, and, go in there and learn all about what I do and who my past clients were. But, I'd just like to see people succeed, and I just have a knack for it, and I have a heart for it. And that's kind of, yeah.
So my next phase, it's Rabbit that I hopefully sell or IPO. Mm-hmm. It's then baby boomers are retiring and I want to buy their businesses, and then I want to apply marketing and sales into their businesses. A lot of these people have tremendous businesses but haven't signed a new client in 10 years and don't care to.
Right. Yeah, sure. And there's a lot of those.
So I plan to, again, IPO or sell Rabbit and then launch Rough Ventures or Rough Capital. And then from there, start buying out probably not a lot of distressed businesses, but mostly good businesses at fair prices where the owners are looking for people they believe in, which I hopefully will be me. And they're saying, look, a lot of venture capital firms have offered money, but you're going to be my president and I want to sell this to you. And so I hope that's my next thing, is that I go from there to a venture capital group to acquiring hundreds of businesses. And of course, rolling them up under one brand, applying marketing and sales, advertising, and kind of rejuvenating them. And then, of course, keep them for cash flow, sell the ones when the right offer comes, whatever, do the thing, all in preparation of, at one point, I got to have the people in place or I got to sell off the assets for this big career move I make in 2050. Or probably 2048 is when I start making that career move.
I was going to say,
getting ready for
move on that earlier than that. Yeah.
But I say that to say, if somebody like me came to you and said, "Hey, you're going to lead sales, and you're going to lead all things sales and training for every one of our portfolio companies," would you ever do that?
I'd have to look at what that was. And I'll tell you why, because what I like to do, everyone's got strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things that there was a role in that is not my favorite. There's a lot to keep up with that. There's board meetings and things. I like getting the number. I don't like reporting on the number. And nowadays, unfortunately, the sales leader, the revenue generator, the CSO, the chief sales officer, what have you, a lot of it is counting cars. That's just what it's become, right? How many units are going out the door, and can we project how many units are going out the door, and can we have some predictability of this pipeline, which I do know how to provide the predictability of the pipeline. But where my real skill set is working with the actual people.
It's coaching. That's what I'm saying.
It's coaching, yeah.
So across all these companies, I'll have thousands of sales guys, and your job is just to fly around.
So literally, I flew around the world with a business card that said sales coach on it, and that was my actual role. I was not the head of sales. I had a lot to do with the sales, but literally it's like, just go. So it's an odd role that's completely different, but it is something that matches my skills, and it's something that I'd want to do. The other thing I'll tell you, I do think we work really hard, and I have worked really hard. I mean, I have been to all 50 states and traveled a lot. And one of the things that I think we don't do enough of is we don't get enough powder days. And that is a metaphor. The skiers will know what that means, but that's a metaphor for what is your favorite thing to do. And that is my favorite thing to do, is to catch a day when there's 12 inches of fresh snow and I'm the first one on the hill. And I missed a lot of those powder days. I missed having children because I was out trying to do the next thing. So there is a thing that you can take success to too far of a level, and then you've achieved it, and then you're like, ta-da, and then you're like 70 years old and you're dead, and you didn't, I have gone helicopter skiing as an example. That's an expensive sport, and it was an expensive week. It was one of the best weeks of my life, though. But when are you going to do that, right? You're not going to do it when you're 70 years old. And fortunately, I did it a couple of years behind me when I still had the legs and the energy to go at it like the madman that I did. So, in terms of what I'm going to do next, or what I'm trying to do, literally, and this is what's interesting, and I teach salespeople this too, I'm trying to impact people one at a time. One at a time. I do recruiting as well. So just recently, I got a new person a job that she had a goal in the marketplace to get to a certain salary. And I'm like, okay, let's see if we can do that. And I was able to place her. I got a fee for placing her. They're very happy with her. But she also is a young person, like 32 years old, making a crap load of money, if that's a technical sales term. I don't know. But I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to do that. The company likes her. She likes it. And
you have ultimate freedom. You can just do whatever the hell you want.
I like to impact. I like to impact people. I like to impact. And in fact, in your case, I've told you this, I'm like looking at what you're trying to do. You're trying to do something really special, crazy special, Elon Musk-esque. In fact, you have pictures of Elon Musk on a candle or something in there. But I want to see that happen.
Have you seen the painting of Elon Musk in the living room?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I want to help impact that. And you said something to me on the golf course, if we could get that customer you didn't see it, but I got quiet and I did some work there when you and I were playing golf, because I'm like, okay, how can we get him that extra $100,000 of revenue? And not only did I do it right there on the golf course because I had a couple ideas turning, I also did it, that evening when I went to bed.
For the record, it was $100K a month. That's the deal.
I remember the number. I'm familiar with the number. I didn't want to say it in front of all the people that are watching your thing. But the point is that, I've been successful because I've been trying to succeed for other people. I haven't been trying to succeed for me, but those people have been very kind to say, hey, Jim, here's some of the riches that you helped create. Not nearly, by the way, not nearly in my view to the riches that they have received, but that's fine. In fact, I even had a word, I don't know if you know much about mountain climbing, but they're called Sherpas, the people that help them. Mm-hmm. And the name of my LLC was called Market Share Sherpas. And Market Share Sherpas know the mountain. No one's ever got to the top of the mountain. This is a phrase that I use in my sales process. No one's ever gotten to the top of the mountain without a Sherpa. No one. No one. Edmund Hillary was the first one to get up there. And he tried to do this for years, by the way. Tenzing Norgay was the name of his Sherpa. And he tried to make him famous. And like only I know that. Right? He did everything he can. He never gave a speech. He said that just didn't happen without his climbing partner. But his climbing partner was a paid guide consultant who lived in the Nepal area, knew the mountain, blah, 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 helped him get to the top. So I've just been a guy. That's my lot in life. I don't say that in a bad way. I've had a lovely life. I sound like I'm dying over here, but but to be the guy who's guiding people. Literally on my website, jimwrigley.com, it says, helping businesses on the revenue ascent. And there's a picture of me standing on top of a mountain. Go to the website and check it out.
Cheesy.
But it's cheesy and it's whatever, but it is what I try to do.
So this is, we have the book, we have your training. How we met is actually through another thing you do. Another thing you're involved with is you bought the rights to Eat the Frog Fitness for all of Tennessee.
That's correct.
Talk to me about that.
So one of the things I believe, you get to a certain point in your life where you get to make investments, and I'd like the investments to be passive is too strong of a word, but helping other people be successful. And the role is called regional developer. So I own all the rights to a franchise, which I think is an excellent franchise. And what I'm doing is I'm selling prospects on opening gyms across Tennessee. It's a very good recurring revenue model for them as well, because when you have memberships, you go into the front of the month knowing what kind of revenue you're going to have. When you have a Subway shop, you don't know what kind of revenue you're going to have. You can, based on your current run rate that we sell 170 sandwiches a day, but you don't know that. With a membership model, there is a kind of a revenue that you already know from day one, and then you just build upon it from there. So I got involved in that, and unfortunately COVID hit. We opened our first one right in the middle of COVID, so that was a bit of a problem. But that's how we met. I think, by the way, salespeople is a way to make some nice money, but ownership is also a thing. So I own a lot of real estate, where I get monthly rentals from my real estate people. And I was thinking, what else can I own that kind of has a recurring revenue process so that I can go ski and do those powder days and play golf and do the things that I enjoy. That's what I'm trying to buy, by the way. A lot of people, when they're trying to make money, they're trying to buy a house, a car, a bigger, whatever it is. I have always been trying to buy my time, and I have succeeded at doing that. That's my big claim to fame in my own heart. It's like, what do you own? I own the right to sleep in. I own the right to go skiing when it snows. I own the right to not have to listen to somebody at this certain, right? Yeah. I have freedom.
Have you played any super dope courses?
I achieved financial freedom. That is on my list today. I just played a place called Victoria National in Evansville, Indiana, the 16th hardest course in the country, according to Golf Digest magazine.
And you shot par?
And I did not, and I was going to tell you that I don't recommend it. There was a lot of, it's just a very, very narrow, very difficult course, and it'll get in your head if you make the slightest of mistakes, which is really challenging, and it's really a beautiful course, by the way. But when you go play a hard golf course, I'm not so sure that's where the average Joe golfer needs to be necessarily.
Jim, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Anything else you want to add?
There is something I want to add because we didn't get to it. I was thinking about this. You and I talked about it, so let's throw this in the can as a soundbite. And that is, I hear all the time in sales, people talk about doing a demonstration. And I absolutely think that a demonstration is the wrong thing to do, even though the customers ask for a demonstration or a presentation. I think we should take those words as salespeople and throw them away. And I think the word we should replace it with is a conversation. If we want to make more money, what we want to do is we want to
talk. So we want to con them into a conversation.
This is why, yes. If we want to make more money, we want to turn our sales presentations and our sales demonstrations into conversations. And the way to actually do that is to say it. So hi, today I'd like to have a little sales conversation with you. I have a formula. Don't tell them the formula, but the formula is why you, why me, why now, right? So we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to do some talking, tell you about me. I'm going to ask some questions that are a little bit about you, and I'm going to see if I can't fit this product in to make sense for you. And if we do, then we have an opportunity to choose to move forward or not. So it's a conversation, not a presentation, because I see so very often that people, well, they did the demo, and then there's an expectation that someone's going to buy it because we demonstrated whatever it was. And that demonstration could be the software program, or it could be the cookies. Well, they ate the cookies. Of course, they're going to buy the cookies for the corporate meeting. They sampled them, right? Yeah. So it's a conversation, not a presentation, not a demonstration. And when you do that, I think it makes a really big difference. So I like people to, think about that.
I need to start doing that because I always call it a demo.
Yeah. If you cancel the demos and start doing the start doing the conversations, it's amazing how that works. Let the people talk. And then, by the way, one of the things that, which I'll do this right now on camera. So now that we're over, how did I do? And we can put this right on the thing. Why wouldn't we not have that conversation if you've got a few more minutes? If we don't, we don't. But
so I always say that it doesn't matter. Like, I don't determine that. Like, I have no say in this game. Like, the audience and listeners and people, they decide how you did.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's fair.
Nothing. I'm just here to facilitate. I'm just here to bring people other cool people.
Yeah.
I want to grow other people's networks.
Yeah. Cool.
I want to grow yours. I want to grow my audience with you. And I just if the people that resonate with it, hopefully we'll reach out. The people that don't. All right. So throughout this podcast, you've mentioned a lot of the same words over and over and over again. What does Jim Wrigley do? I make people more money.
All right.
Sales soft serve, blah. So my question is that just from your years of coaching, consulting, where you get to hammer that through people? Is that something you are intentionally doing so that people learn from you, or is that just how you talk? Just let's talk about that.
So there's a thing: drill, rehearse, and repeat. Right? So drill, rehearse, and repeat, rather. Let me say that the right way. So I do repeat things a lot because what I want people to remember is a few things. One of the things that's really important to me is if there's a few things that you can remember, then you can do them. If you can't remember them, then you can't do them. For example, there is a book called The Seven Habits of Highly Successful People.
Highly effective people, right?
What did I say?
Successful.
Oh, it's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah. Stephen Covey.
Yep.
And there you go. I couldn't remember the name of it. But the point is that I asked people to raise their hand if they read the book, and that is a mega bestseller. That everyone's read that book. And then I'm like, okay, what are those secrets? Right? And it's amazing how often people get stumped. In fact, I had to go back and remember them myself. And whenever I do a talk, I remind myself again what they are, because I don't want to get caught when people are going, So the idea is that I want things to be really simple. So when I say how to have a conversation, there's only 4 things to remember. I say it over and over because I want people to remember the 4 things to have a conversation, which is, what are you doing now? What do you like about what you're doing now? What do you dislike about what you're doing now, and what would you change? So if that's all you learned, you know how to go to a cocktail party now and have a really good conversation. And so the way to remember it is just to go now, like, dislike, change. And sometimes I've had audiences go now, like, dislike, change, now, like, dislike, change. So it has just kind of become a part of my nature. And people say, boy, you repeat yourself often. I do. It's intentional. I do it on purpose because I want you to remember.
So I have a really hard time remembering things like that. And when I'm visually stimulated, it's funny, I'm an audiobook guy. So when I listen to a story, I can listen. If I listen to something very long, I have no problem. I doubt I'd remember. If I listened to that on audiobook, I doubt I'd remember it. But if I saw it, if I saw a beautiful graphic that explained that,
right,
that's what I would need.
Yes, that's right.
We've sat here for 2 hours. I don't know it. You just said I literally don't know it. Now, part of it is I'm
right,
not actually actively listening.
Sure.
As much as this breaks people's hearts, maybe, but the truth is that I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying and thinking, okay, what are good questions I can ask in response to this? So that's often why I'm not remembering a lot of this. But
right,
the good news is I just go back and click play.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
But, so do you have graphics that you've designed for every single one of these things that at a conference you go, hey, people, text artwork to 7791, and we'll send you all these graphics. You can easily remember it. You can post it on social media. It has your logo on it.
So I haven't done a lot of branding and things like that. I do have a workbook and a workshop. When I work with people, I do kind of talk about it, and it's a very interactive thing, because remember, I don't do a presentation, I don't do a demonstration, I do a conversation, and I walk right out on the stage, and I do kind of take the place and say, okay, we're going to have a conversation now, and I absolutely engage the audience. One of the things that's most powerful thing at the end, I tell them we're going to do this, and then I do it. I say, I'm going to go around the room. I'm going to ask you for what was the most important thing you learned during this presentation. And I'm going to help you like a college professor by saying, this is on the test. Now, one thing I didn't do during our time, I didn't say, write this down. I think I said that once. I didn't repeat that because I realized you're not going to write anything down. It's a podcast. So, but I do believe, and I say very often, because I'm not trying, I'll promise you this, I'm trying to teach you how to make more money. I've said that one a lot. And I want you to win, period. That's how I win when you win. So I don't care if it was good. I don't care if you liked it. I care if you make more money. And so that's why writing things down and repeating it and making sure that you're going to do it, and then asking you at the end, okay, what are you going to do tomorrow? Because there's some things that I gave you right here that you're going to do tomorrow. For example, Nathan, how do you have a conversation? What are the 4 things? If the answer is you don't know, I'm providing real value when I say, okay, it's now like, dislike, change. So this was kind of odd for me. I haven't done this before, frankly. First time I've kind of done this interview podcast kind of thing. So it's not necessarily the forum for me. I really enjoyed it. This was fun. But that is why I repeat things so often, because I want them to be remembered. I want them to be done. I want them to be used.
Well, I would really love to put together some graphics that make it easier for people to remember them, easier for people to share them, easier, like all the things you want. I think that if you had some stellar graphics, they don't have to be like fancy, but just like pleasing graphics that did all these things, that would be like really killer.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very fair point, and that is kind of a next step for me, because it really has. It's almost like I'm going from personal training, right, to kind of group training. And so now I need some of these more, these further vehicles. So the book was the one. That's why people ask me to write the book, because they're like, you don't have anything written. It's like, this stuff is great. You're saying I got a pencil. I've got a pencil. I'm writing it down as fast as I can, but I can't get it all, because your brain is this wealth of knowledge, and I want this knowledge and I want to do it. And so that's why I kind of put it down and do a book. But then again, the coaching is how to do it. It's a playbook. It's not a book that reads like a book. The chapters are called acts, meaning there's actions that you can actually take. You can open that book up to any page, literally any page, and just do what you see on the page. And I've actually done that with clients for fun. And just let's do the exercise. It's a workbook, really.
So we've talked about prospecting. You got to have your list. Something I forgot to ask, where do you get the list? Do you buy it? Do you create it yourself?
So you did forget to ask that, and that is super super important, because it is crucial, and people don't have a prospect list. So one of the things that I make sure of is I ask people, where is the prospect list? What is the prospect list? So what is the market that we're calling on? If, for example, you were selling car washes, which you have a referral program for car washes. There's all different ways to get that list, but whatever way we get that list, we need that list. So we need if we're selling car washes in Texas, there is a place. You can Google it, right? And you can call list companies. You can get the name and contact information of every single car wash in Dallas, Texas. And by the way, for your business, that's a perfect example. If you have this great success story at a car wash, why on earth? I mean, I'll do it for you, Nathan. Why on earth are we there? I bet there's 170 different car wash owners in this state. All of them could benefit from this, and I could call down that list in a week. And yet we're not, right? And yet you're not.
Well, for us, we don't. We much rather sell gyms. We much rather sell apartment complexes. We much rather sell websites to companies like accounting firms. Like we have it in Nashville. I use this accounting firm still in Nashville, called Brown and McGuire or something. Incredible. I mean, like they're just great.
Right. Okay.
Their website was built in 2004.
Yeah.
And
not good.
If I bring it up to Steve Brown, the guy who runs it, he'll say something like, well, people refer us clients. They come to us. We don't search for them. We don't look for them. It's got a link on the website for people to pay online. It works. That's that.
Right.
And I'm like, okay.
Well, there you go.
I can't provide a lot of value here.
I was going to say, remember, people want to solve, they basically you buy something to make or save or make something easier, right? You're solving problems. And if you don't have a solution, then they're not going to pay money. They're not going to solve a problem they don't believe they have. And what that man just described to you, by the way, was not really an objection. There's two things out there. There's objections and there is obstacles. And that is an obstacle because he does not believe that he has a problem.
Well, he actually doesn't. He doesn't want new customers.
He actually doesn't want new. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I mean, like,
well
actually,
said.
the reason I think I've mentioned it for 2 seconds, because I met him when we were with rabbits. I was just done with but it's one of those, like, I don't think he thinks, like, he doesn't care to have new clients. He just keeps getting them because he's so good. And it's like, all right. Like, what did he say? He was like, yeah, people just keep sending us clients, and so we just keep building offices to supply them.
And we keep serving them. Yeah, right. And we have all the business that we can handle. And so there's an example. A weaker salesperson would put that in the pipeline. You know why? Because they did a presentation, right? And that's wrong, right? We're not doing presentations. We're having conversations, but it wasn't a good conversation because we did not identify a problem that we could solve that he thought he was experiencing. So that's the difference between objections and obstacles. And sometimes I see people, because they really want, that would be great to have them as a client. So we keep calling on them and we keep banging our head against the wall. We've got an obstacle there. We don't have an objection there. They're not objecting to our prices, or I'm not objecting to the fact that they have a 2004. They're not a customer.
Do you believe a lot in showing up? Not just phone calls and emails, but like in-person meetings?
So that is an old school way. I will tell you, in this modern world, when people buy stuff, they're 60% sold. I don't know if you've heard that before, but there's so much information on the web right now. You can just Google it. So if you're needing an accounting firm, for example, is that what it was? Yeah. So if you're needing an accounting firm, the first thing you do is you go, I need an accounting firm. The next thing you do is, like, in Nashville, what are the accounting firms? Okay, what are the well-reviewed accounting firms? So sales is really, so to answer your question on the showing up thing, sales has really changed. A lot of sales now is getting them 60% of the way there before the salesperson ever talks to them. You even mentioned there was a person who just takes inbound sales leads. And that's because their SEO, their website is doing so well, driving information. They have something of great value, and it's sending in the business.
Transitioning, I have a pipeline. I have deals in it. They move too slow. How do I fix that?
So that's an excellent question, one that I appreciate because I do this for people all the time. How you fix that is you have to know, and most people don't, where you stand with each and every prospect. And what I mean by know where you stand, there is a way to give a number. There are 7 steps. You've heard me talk about that.
Let me guess. There's 7 steps for it?
I'm going to repeat it. But what you do is you put where they stand in the pipeline because a lot of times people will, it's a board meeting coming up and they'll project the answer. They'll say, okay, we're going to get this customer. And as a sales manager, I was really good at, no, we're not. Here's an example. Have they read the contract? No, they haven't. Well, why on earth would we say that we're going to get it by the end of the month if they haven't even read the contract? Reading the contract is one of the steps. So in our CRM, we put all the individual steps that have to happen. We have to teach the prospect how to buy from us. And one of the things that you have to do to buy from us is to sign a contract in some cases, right? So if that's one of the steps that has to happen and that step hasn't happened, we're stuck at that step. So there's all different steps. If one of the steps is to check references and references have not been checked, right, that's further back in the process. If one of the things is to do a conversation, not a presentation or a demonstration, right, but to actually see the product, they haven't actually seen the product, once again. So what you do is you put all of that into the pipeline, and then you look at where you stand, and then you'll know exactly where you are in your pipeline, and you will not project things that are not ready to be closed.
So for me, if I wanted to close a client, I mean, there's tons of ways I could do that. But one, I just get a current client and I invite the client I want to sign to lunch with the current client, and we all have lunch. And I say, yeah, what's his name? He's thinking about working with us kind of in the same capacity. And because it's in the same capacity, I thought y'all might get along, and so here we are. Is that a good tactic?
That's a great technique. In fact, golf is a wonderful way to do that. If you have a big client, I'll tell you how you get a big client. Hire a pro or the pro at the course. And then it's the pro, it's you, the salesperson, it's an existing client, and it's the big prospect. and you let the pro do the show, right? You let the pro kind of, hey, we got an opportunity to play with this really good golfer who's going to give tips to both parties. So what you're doing is you're entertaining a current client. You get it. Yeah, you picked it up because I could tell because you smiled.
You know what I do? I do hey, my friend Alan, who just happens to be the golf pro at XYZ Golf Course, he invited me to play this week, Thursday at 3. You want to join us? They're like, what?
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so you're entertaining a current client. You're getting a new prospect to meet the current client. And it's a wonderful way to close. That's for high ticket stuff, obviously. That's going to be a 4-hour investment of your time. But if you're looking for $100,000 a month clients, that's probably going to be a worthwhile investment of your time.
Yeah, it's that deal is all about who knows who. You know, it's about like, oh, we worked with this franchisee, but he happens to have the number one franchise, so the people that run the franchise actually care, and he makes a referral. Or,
yeah, sure.
I'm trying to think of how we got D1, which is like, 65 location.
Oh, is D1 one of your clients?
Yeah. How did we get? Oh, yeah. Healthcare executive. He's in YPO, which is, 10 million plus, like a big, 10 million plus in revenue, at least 50 employees.
Right.
He's in there with a guy with Will, who's founder of D1. And he's been a great client. He's just been a complete blessing to my life and our family. And I was telling about the referral software. I'm like, we have traction. We just haven't, we're not insane blown up, but like our results are great. Like it works. We just need to get more customers.
Right.
And he's like, well, let me just reach out to Will. So he makes a conversation with Will, he does it via group text. So now I have Will's number, which is big mistake now.
Right.
Because so I'm texting, and so Will is like, yeah, I just need to know what it does. And I'm like, well, I can't really explain it to you. I can just show you. And he's like, no, I really need you to write a description. Like he just forces me. And so I'm like, all right, fine. So I write this description in an email of how it works. And I'm like, all right, not going to get this deal. I mean, hate to speak that into existence, but it's just like most of the time somebody won't even hop on a call with me if they're just forcing me to do this way. And he goes, this sounds interesting. Yeah, let's hop on a call. We get on a call. And call runs 15 minutes past what it's supposed to. And he goes, I'm late for my next meeting. The reason I'm late for my next meeting is because you created a badass product. We're looking forward to working together. And then just said, Austin, go ahead and get everything signed off for him. We're ready to get started immediately. Just like, so it's one call. They saw it. They're like, oh, this makes sense. Done deal.
May I ask how much that deal's worth?
So that deal right now is worth $400 a month.
Okay.
And they pay no setup fee, and it cost us about $2,000, $2,500 to set up one. So we're probably minus $500 at this point in the stage.
Soon enough, you'll be in the
but
win.
If
got
we
a great
go,
referral.
we got corporate. Well, we got corporate, and if corporate goes well, which we're hoping that there's been a lot of delays on corporate. We sent them everything, and it was 2 months before we heard back, and vacations and. Oh, we're not ready to try it out yet. We have a few, so it was kind of weird. It was like super fast to get it live. And then once it was live, everybody's like, all right, cool. Nobody did it. So,
yeah, right, yeah.
But now it looks like it's part of their systems and processes. It's live. Their membership base at Cool Springs has been there forever. And so that's not we need new members because they need to be excited and then you give it to them while they're excited and they share.
Sure, yeah, right.
They've been there 3 years. Yeah.
Right, got it.
So I never thought it'd be successful there. And so now what I'm pushing for is like, hey, can we get one location that's hasn't even opened yet or is just opened? And as they're onboarding members, everyone gets a referral page and let's see how it does there. I know it's going to crush.
Right.
But ultimately, if that deal goes through, there's 65 locations right now, I believe, and they should have like 220 by the end of next year. That's how many they have being built right now. Like, so they have that, they already have that signed, I believe. And so that would be, 220 times $400 a month. It'd be a fairly good contract.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So in that example, by the way, so what do? You have a referral system. Now you're telling them what it is versus what you do. And what you do is here's your tagline. Here's your resisting to listening. You increase the revenue of local gyms with a referral program that's, best of class and never been done before. I'd like to show you how we do that. So that's that's how you get, he wanted a whole description of it. What he really wants to do, what you do for gyms is you increase their revenue, right? We're going to increase your revenue. And if you want to get a urgency into the pipeline, throw a guarantee on it. Yeah.
So his is like, oh yeah, I get it. Okay. Everybody increases revenue. Cool. Hear that every day. Don't care. I need to know what it does. And so my thing is, what we do is we make it where your referral program isn't from the 1700s.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We give you a referral program that actually works.
That actually works, I was going to say.
It's trackable and scalable. So I say is we create a referral program that's not like the one you use now from the 1700s. It's trackable, it's scalable, and we have pretty insane results.
That's a great line. Now take a prospect list and take every gym in the state of Tennessee, because you've got several gyms in Tennessee, and go blow up Tennessee and dominate Tennessee.